Hello everyone, thanks for coming. Welcome to the WINS Challenges Showcase. My name is Mehan and I'm a program officer here at Mozilla. And with a huge amount of help from my colleagues, I have been overseeing the WINS program for the last 2 years. We're really excited to see this program culminate today in today's showcase event and to watch all of the incredible demos from our finalist teams. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I'd like to thank a few folks in particular. First, I would like to thank our finalists who have traveled from all around the country. It's been a long road for these teams. They've been working on their design concepts and then working on their demos, working on their prototypes for over a year now. So I want to thank all of them for the incredible amount that they've put into their projects and into the presentations they'll be giving today. I want to thank our judges who are sitting up here in the front, all of whom have taken time out of their busy schedules to judge dozens of applications from our different teams and to join us here today to watch the live demos and ask questions from our teams. And then finally, I want to thank our program staff from NSF, Jack and Thiaga, who are joining us here today in person. This whole program was their brainchild, so please, if you see them, give them our thanks for helping kind of shepherd the WINS program for the last 2 years. So a few kind of logistical things before we get started. So lunch is in the kitchen area, just over to the side of the stage here. So if you haven't helped yourself to some lunch already, please feel free to do so and bring it into the room. We've also got snacks and drinks and things like that in the kitchen if you need anything. Bathrooms are also in the hallway, just on this other side of the wall. Just walk to the end of the hallway there. And if you need Wi-Fi, there is a guest network called Mozilla Guest that you should be able to see on your devices. So we've got a pretty tight schedule today, so there's not going to be a lot of kind of setup. We're just going to kind of go back to back to back to back with the demos until 3:30, though we will have a few breaks in between. So if you have the schedule card, you'll see the breaks listed on the schedule. So we're kind of splitting things up into two halves based on the two different challenges. So we're going to have the Smart Community Networks teams are going to go first, and we're going to see 7 demos from the Smart Community Networks teams, and then we're going to have 7 demos from the off-the-grid internet teams who are here. So I'll give you a little bit of information about each of the 2 challenges that make up the WINS challenges. The Smart Community Networks Challenge is networks that piggyback on existing infrastructure to bring connectivity to unconnected or underconnected Americans. So that could be folks in urban areas who don't have fast enough or affordable enough connectivity. That could be folks in rural areas. That could be folks in areas where there are geographic difficulties to bringing connectivity to those people. And then the second challenge, the Off-the-Grid Internet Challenge, is for portable solutions that can provide access either in the aftermath of a major disaster, so after a hurricane or a tsunami or some kind of event where the wireless networks and mobile networks might be down, or also can bring connectivity to areas where it's not currently available. So each of the teams are going to come up here. They're going to have 5 minutes to present. We've got a variety of different formats, and so we'll be having teams show videos. We'll be having teams who give a kind of presentation with slides. We'll be having teams who do live demos as well. After their 5 minutes, each of the lead team members will move into what we're calling the hot seat over here, and they will take live questions from the judges for 4 minutes. And then after that, we'll move on to the next team. So out of respect to our teams, while the demos are in progress, we please ask that you be quiet. If you need to have a conversation or a phone call or anything like that, please go out into the main lobby in order to do that. And with that, I am going to hand things off to my colleague, Jen, who is going to be our MC for today. Thank you, Jen.
Great. Thank you so much, and I'm basically just passing the baton on to Angela Plomin, who is the Executive Vice President of Mozilla Foundation. So she's going to come up and talk a little bit about Mozilla.
I'm happy I can do it from this podium and not the hot seat, so it's great. Yeah, I'm just really thrilled to welcome you all here to Mozilla for what is going to be really a transformative day. Congratulations to all the finalists, incredible work. Excited to see all the projects after so much work. And thank you to the judges for doing the hard work of picking the winners of these 2 challenges. So Mozilla and the National Science Foundation have partnered for many years now on open innovation challenges and programs where together we've seen millions of dollars invested in significant projects, groundbreaking community projects from across the United States that have ranged from the upcoming wireless challenge winners to our work with US Ignite, to our work in gigabit cities, and we'll see some of that tomorrow. Mozilla is really deeply proud of this collaboration with NSF and really grateful, there you are, grateful for NSF's trust in us and continued partnership. So you may not know much about the movement building work of Mozilla. Certainly this is really part of that work. Mozilla believes the internet is a global public resource that should be open and accessible to all. We're dedicating resources to fueling a movement that brings together a global force of citizens willing to stand up for and build the open internet together. We're working to shine a light on key issues affecting the internet today, and you can see some of that in our Internet Health Report, which is an annual publication. We are rallying citizens to take action on these issues through campaigns and our advocacy work. And we are working to support leaders who are dedicating their lives and careers to building a more open and inclusive internet. These include leaders, like all of you here today, who are making technologies that provide citizens with agency, with the opportunity to make meaningful choices, and which present a vision of the world that we're trying to work towards together. In the 21st century, a lack of internet access is far more than an inconvenience. It's a staggering disadvantage. Without access, individuals miss out on substantial government services, economic and educational opportunities, and the ability to communicate with family, friends, and peers. And here today, there are some of the game changers who are shifting the way that people are able to access resources and opportunities in a post-disaster situation and in underconnected communities. They're showing us that open, creative, innovative solutions come from and engage our communities. They're tackling key internet health issues like decentralization, privacy and security, and digital inclusion. And they're demonstrating the impact technology can have on the human experience in positive, hopeful, and empowering ways. And on that last point, this movement really needs all of you. We need your passion, your ideas, your commitment to ensure that the internet of today and in the future is healthy, open, and accessible to all. Mozilla is committed to continuing to support the hard work being done by leaders here in the US and beyond, through our fellowship program, through awards and prizes like we're doing here in partnership with NSF. And we invite you to stay connected and involved by attending MozFest, our annual convening, which is in London this year at the end of October, by getting involved in our campaign work, and by contributing to the Internet Health Report. So thanks again to all of you here who have worked so hard on your projects. Thanks to the team at Mozilla for facilitating these challenges with tireless efforts, energy, smiles. And to all of you who are here today, who are as hopeful as I am, that if we work together, we can make change and craft an ambitious vision for the future of a healthy internet together. So thank you very much, and good luck to everybody here.
Great, thanks. Next, we'll have Thiaga Nandagopal, who is the Deputy Division Director of SIZE at NSF and is also our Program Officer for WINS. So, Thiaga.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me also repeat Mehan and also thank Mehan first for doing a fantastic job of shepherding this competition from the beginning to the end. Lindsay and Jen and the entire Mozilla leadership team, we really appreciate. NSF has been really happy to have you guys as willing partners in our efforts to make the internet a more open and affordable place for everyone. So let me kind of tie in the theme of making the internet affordable and open. Many of you know, if you do not, a quick summary, NSF was key in taking what was a defense network called ARPANET to what we know as the internet today through its support of the NSF-net, which essentially opened up the internet to the entire university community and the schools and everything. And that's how it ended up being the internet that we know today. And we all now have gone past that stage. We all have rely on our smartphones quite a bit. And yet we know there's a huge urban and rural disconnect. And also, there's a lack of reliability in many of these wireless services that we take for granted for the most part, most of the time. And there's those situations when we don't have it, when its need is really felt hard and deep, right? People often say that we are just one earthquake away from going back to the Stone Age, right? And we have seen those instances come to light often. And we have the urban poor who live every day in some sense, who struggle with opportunities and so on, without access to this internet that we all think is the highway, digital highway for the future. So our goal essentially has been not just promote research that will make the internet better, faster, cheaper, but also think of policies and ways in which we can get that access out to everybody, because that's the end goal of what we are trying to do. It's not just about promoting the science, but making sure, in accordance with the NSF's mission, that the science has an impact on the public and the nation at large, right? And what we are doing here today, in some sense, is a culmination of some of the ideas that we have been looking at. Essentially, we have been investing in 5G and 4G for many, many years. And yet we have these challenges, and we see these news articles every year, especially when Hurricane Sandy hit New York. It was vivid and stark. People went without, they didn't know how to use or how to get information for 3 or 4 days, and we couldn't believe it was happening in a developed country like the United States, right? So that's what kind of germinated in this vision for this challenge, and we are happy that Mozilla shared that vision. And we also thought that once you go past a certain technical ability, the ability to achieve a solution doesn't really, you don't need a PhD for doing that, right? People can actually come up with smart ideas, and they can put things together and in ways that what you think as a skilled person cannot foresee. And we make the challenge open to everyone, right, including high school students. And we did get a few entries from those, which were very creative. Now, I also want to emphasize that the folks here, the 14 finalists here, are not the only ones with the best ideas. There are many good ideas that came to bear that we saw across in the competition. There are excellent ones, but you also have a fantastic, what do you call as a proof of concept, a realization that you have convinced the judges here. Thank you for doing the job of evaluating those. This is a hard work and I know they're struggling with picking the best winners of this group. I would say that regardless of what happens, who ends up winning this challenge, who gets the prize money, all 14 of you are winners, right? And NSF stands proudly behind each and every one of you, and we are happy to give you the platform, the visibility to take whatever you have envisioned to the next steps, right? Because we are here to help. To realize this vision of a free and open internet and making it affordable to everyone. So with that, I'm once again thank all of you for being here, and feel free to reach out to me and Jack here if you have any questions about how you want to conceptualize or make this a reality, regardless of what happens here today, and we are happy to help you. Thank you.
Whoops, sorry. All right, well, we're going to get started with what you've all been waiting for, which is the Smart Community Networks Challenge. And our first, I feel like I should say our first contestant, our first participant will be Diana Nucera, who is from the Allied Media Projects in Detroit, Michigan, and she will be presenting the Equitable Internet Initiative.
How do I advance? Just left, right, up, down? Just hit the button this way for your... Okay. Tell me when the clock starts. Hi. No pressure being first. When does the clock start? Here. Now. We are in a state of digital emergency in Detroit, where over 40%
of the residents in Detroit have no internet connection, and as the city develops into a smart city, 40% of people will be left behind. We've been working on this problem since 2009, using community wireless as one of our main tools. The Equitable Internet Initiative incubates neighborhood-based internet service providers rooted in community hubs such as churches and community centers and community radio stations. They've been leading this work for the past 3 years. First, we purchased 3 1-gigabit connections that then distributed to Detroit neighborhoods that were lacking digital infrastructure. Those connections now have scaled to be 2 gigs and are plugged into the Internet Exchange Point. We then train residents from those neighborhoods to then have the skills necessary to build, operate, and maintain the wireless networks, bringing their communities online. Simultaneously, we trained youth in developing gigabit applications that then live on the intranet or local servers of those networks. That allows neighbors to communicate as well as distribute resources in any case. We've successfully incubated 3 organizations that offer low-cost, high-speed internet, and these neighborhood WISPs are registered with the FCC. They are proudly practicing net neutrality and consumer privacy rights. We are changing the face of who a technologist is and how they operate. Our trainings prioritize people of color, women, trans and queer communities, and people with disabilities, those who have been traditionally neglected by the tech industries. These are just a few of our digital stewards who are changing the face of internet in Detroit. So for our Mozilla WINS prototype, we realized that a wireless network means absolutely nothing without electricity or people using it. So we created a 4-part system that acts both as an emergency communication system as well as a network adoption tool. So first, if you want a wireless communication system, you're going to need a signal. So we created a 3-day battery backup that keeps key parts of our networks operating in the case of a power outage. Then we realized you're going to need a device in order to use the signal. So we developed solar charging stations that are strategically placed throughout each neighborhood in public parks and community centers that allow people to keep their devices charged. For those who do not have a device, these stations also act as an information hub that have physical maps and booklets that allow people to see where food, water, and shelter are then located. Now, in order to reach all the people that we could within the neighborhood, we then designed a series of portable network kits. These kits take our battery backed up system, expand them for 4 blocks. When you combine these kits together, you create concentric circles that then have the ability to spread a wireless signal across an entire neighborhood, offering people access to the intranet. So finally, to ensure people are aware of this system, we designed a graphics campaign. And to ensure that this system is accurate to what the needs of each individual community is, we developed a curriculum that trains our digital stewards in working with neighborhood leaders to then develop preparedness plans. So in 2006, when the rest of the world was asking, is Detroit worth saving? We were asking, what will the role of technology be in building new economies and restoring community? Today, we employ over 25 people with our networks, and we're able to access so many more people if we had the chance to scale. So with support from Mozilla WINS, we would be able to ensure that the new economies that we've built are both resilient and based in mutual aid. So investing in us is not just investing in another community wireless project. You are investing in women of color-owned technology businesses. You are investing in the longevity of net neutrality and consumer privacy rights within community. And most importantly, you are investing in a group of people who are the only people qualified to end the digital divide in Detroit. Thank you.
That's the hot seat. That's the hot seat. And judges, if you will ask your questions into the microphones, then they can.
Hello.
You might need to turn it on. There's a little on.
There we go. So, yeah, you mentioned intranet and internet. So what is the access to? Is it purely to the locally created intranet, or is there external access as well?
This particular prototype that we worked on is specifically for the intranet because we believe that has the most capacity to do the community organizing, to get people online, to then use the internet. But our networks, you can only access the intranet if you're one of our customers. So because we prioritize a certain group of people, not everyone in the neighborhood is getting access to that. So in a case of emergency, we wanted to make sure that everyone could access it, or as many people as possible. But our networks are 25 up, 25 down, and they go between the costs of $10 a month to $30 a month, depending on if you're a business or your income.
Any other questions?
And are those fees you charge, is your network self-sustaining in terms of the cost of backhaul and the fees you charge, or is it subsidized?
We will reach a profit by 2021, and if we were able to get this support from Mozilla WINS, it would take us to that point. The profit would be able to sustain 5 employees per network, as well as gain about $21,000 in profit that would then allow the organizations to continue programming that they're already doing. And that's why we feel it's important to be rooted within community places, because these networks not only allow people to have internet access, doing affordability, doing resiliency, but it's sustaining the ongoing organizing work that's happening within those organizations once we reach the profit in 2021.
Any back row questions? They have a microphone too. Oh, here.
So I see that this is largely dependent on volunteer maintenance. So is there any plan in place for keeping awareness of what devices have been maintained over what kind of time, and helping people, helping those volunteers track their time on maintaining the network?
So it is not based on volunteer. These are paid staff. That's why we employ about 25 people, because there's about 6 people per neighborhood. So we truly believe that this work, in order to sustain itself, it needs to be accounted for. People need to be paid to do this. They are facilitating community leaders that are already working in resiliency to then use the network. So we're essentially, our digital stewards are bringing communication infrastructure to those who are already doing organizing. So this is not adding extra work onto people, it's simply adding a new tool for the work that they're doing.
Okay, thanks.
Tony?
Yeah. Back to the subscribers, one is, what rate do you have right now? What's the take rate of subscribers for the paid service that actually get internet? And of those on the internet, are they just using their phones at home? And have you done any research around, are they using cellular plans now, and can they like replace their cellular subscription with this subscription? That would make economic sense. And then in addition to that, this is the third part of the question, is do you provide laptops or desktops for them to use at home, or is it primarily just cell phone driven?
So we're working with people that have not had internet before. So as you saw in my beginning slide, 40% of Detroiters had no internet, and 70% of them were children in schools, and 30% of them are below the federal poverty line. So the devices that they're using are likely outdated or none at all. So that's why we feel that it's important to work within community organizations and incubate these ISPs that have computer centers. One of the computer centers on like our East Side network, they actually build computers from recycled parts and give them to folks that are connected. The rates in which people are using the connections right now, like each network has 50 folks wired up into it, and they're gigabit networks, and people are only pulling like 60 megabits per second. And I suspect that's because they're not sure what they can do with it. And that's why we have digital stewards. So the digital stewards are trained in building, maintaining, but also educating the community and using this newfound high-speed internet. Our networks are symmetrical. They're 25 up, 25 down, and we're not interested in changing that contention ratio until we start, because we want people to have the ability to use the maximum amount of internet that they can and see what's possible with it.
And just a clarifying question was, on the take rate, actually it was how many of the total people on the intranet subscribe to the internet at that $10 a month or $30 a month?
Oh,
and
so
how
it's
do you see
50-50. Yeah, so
50-50.
everyone who is essentially our customer gets access to the intranet that the youth apps are located. With our Mozilla prototypes, then we're able to actually spread that throughout the whole neighborhood. So you can't access that unless you're one of our customers. And we prioritize people who have no internet. Although people have switched over from like Comcast or AT&T to us, they pay a little more but people who have no internet at all start off at the $10 rate. And each network has its own business plan that I'm not involved in at all, so that they decide what their neighbors can actually pay.
All right, that's our time. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Woo! Good luck, everyone.
Nicely done, nicely done. We promised it would be fast and furious. So we will now have Dorothy Bonnick from Digital C with Connect the Unconnected, hailing from Cleveland, Ohio.
Thanks, Jen. So it's so great to be here, and thanks to NSF and Mozilla for having us not only to compete, but also to learn what others are doing. So I'm Dorothy Bonnick, and I'm in this job for 9.5 months. I'm about to birth a new organization, but some terrific things have been going on with our housing authority, where we've connected 500 homes. I want to add a personal note, though, to this. In the summer of 1966, I had graduated high school in the Slavic Village neighborhood, and I rode with my father to work one morning, going up 55th Street through the heart of the city, past Euclid Avenue and Huff Avenue to turn left on Superior to go to his foundry where he earned a living. I was going to learn what happened in an office, kind of like an internship before those were invented. These streets that I mentioned are the defining streets of the two neighborhoods that we're going to talk about, Huff and Glenville, where we want to expand from the 550 households that we brought internet to in the Cleveland Metropolitan Housing Authority to single-family homes. And Digital C's Midtown Tech Hive is in the heart of Cleveland's health tech corridor. This historic corridor and the surrounding neighborhoods exist because of Cleveland's proud heritage of innovation and healthcare and manufacturing, and its location at the mouth of the Cuyahoga River, which, yes, once burned, and that flows into Lake Erie along the main thoroughfare between between New York, Detroit, and Chicago. Let's watch the video because they know I can't stay on script. Cleveland is the third least connected city in the nation. This is unacceptable. Large parts of the city have been digitally redlined, with 40 to 60% of residents in our poorest neighborhoods not having access to the internet. To begin to address this divide, Digital C has piloted a program called Connect the Unconnected. Our demo project and next phase is focused on providing access to standalone homes, with a new public-private partnership on the horizon. To connect all 78,000 households, we will need the help of Cleveland's anchor institutions and public officials. I'm talking about banks, hospitals, universities, foundations, libraries, and churches. The dialogue has begun.
Our goal of our Digital Excellence Initiative is to position Greater Cleveland as a leader in innovation, as well as equitable internet and technology access for all residents. We support this work through one of our great partners in Digital C.
We are currently sitting in the Midtown Tech Hive, which is home to Digital C, but not just to the organization, it's also home to the second phase of our Connect the Unconnected pilot program. Connect the Unconnected is focused on bridging the digital divide in Cleveland and bringing internet access to low-income, underserved parts of the community. Our Phase 2 pilot is really focused on not just bringing connectivity to high-rise public housing residents, but also to individual single-family homes. So we're branching out, we're utilizing some really nascent, exciting technologies called millimeter wave to bridge the gap and bring access to even more underserved Clevelanders. Up on this roof right now, we have a millimeter wave antenna that's part of our original Connect the Unconnected network. That means it's talking to 9 other buildings on a network tied back to fiber optics at a hospital. That antenna is also going to allow us to connect individual single-family homes right across the street. These are neighbors that are currently taking digital literacy training classes here at the Midtown Tech Hive, and will soon be able to practice the skills they learn in their own homes once they're connected to the internet.
If you don't have internet, you're somewhere at a loss. You know the world is big, but you don't know what's happening next door. The internet open up everything to you, you know.
Technology is our way of life. It's how we get our jobs or how we deal with school or anything like that.
They don't really do paper applications no more, so everything is online. if you go to a public library and you apply for the job, and you don't go home, you don't have that internet, then it's like, oh, if I get a email back, then I can't get it unless I go to the library.
We went to a Huff neighborhood and we handed out the resident surveys and the faith-based organization surveys. It really did mean a lot. It showed the resources that they do have, the programs that they want to bring.
There is a gap within our community. There is a gap within the digital literacy and people being able to get on the computer and being able to get on the internet.
One of our very first students to train at the Midtown Tech Hive actually lives right across the street. Mr. Hameen was one of our first graduates of our basic digital literacy course here, and he's really making use of the space and the technology and the training available here.
My granddaughter, she couldn't understand why I couldn't send her no email. I said, because I don't know how. And it was difficult for her to understand. You can't do what? I said, the only thing I can do on the computer is play spades. You know, but since then I have sent her an email. You know, and she said, oh. I said, I told you I was smart as you.
It's not about the technology, it's about the people. What Digital C is doing is more than merely providing access. We're dedicated to ensuring that people in Cleveland's poorest and ignored neighborhoods have understanding to fully utilize technology to improve their lives.
Thank you. Hot seat time. All right. Are there any questions? Yep. You pass the mic down.
That was a lovely video. It was great to see the people, but I don't understand the solution at all. I understand the millimeter wave, but millimeter wave is a line of sight access, and so do you mean to put individual receivers on every single house? And what is the last, the bearer that the person actually gets?
Yeah, so we're going to use wireless mesh technology on the houses.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that the technology that we have works in the high rises, but we're going to the houses. Mr. Hameen's house, which was one of the three saw across the street, was connected last Thursday. That was no small feat. The technology was the easy part, but there are 4 residents in that home, and so wireless mesh technology, we know that we're delivering to the apartments 35 up and down. We hope to deliver at least that much into the homes. We're really looking for other models, how to deliver wireless mesh across neighborhoods. We're ready to do a couple of blocks in both Huff and Glenville with the backbone, the millimeter wave backbone designed. We used Ubiquity technology on the house across the street, so you know, really relying on others' technology expertise, WinCom doing the backbone, and then Actellus, Ciclu, and Scipio, who has a new G.fast technology that are going to help us continue to deliver in the houses.
Okay, so is the last leg Wi-Fi or?
It is Wi-Fi.
It is Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Thanks. And then it's access just to the open internet.
Access to the open
Yeah.
internet. We're going to do a spin-off employing the neighbors in a co-op model through our Evergreen spin-off that has done solar panel installation and laundry. So similar to Detroit, we're going to do a spin-off company to teach the neighbors how to do the installations themselves and then maintain it themselves. And we're in process of doing that business plan now.
And is there a charging model?
The price point's $10 to $20 per resident. It's all that we've done to date is free.
Okay.
But we know if you start offering it free, you can't sustain. That's not a sustainable model. So that's our price point, along with the anchor institutions really contributing, banks and hospitals in particular contributing on the front end, and also helping to maintain the networks with part of the financial model.
Just a clarifying question. You said 10 to 20 per resident. Does that mean if there's 5?
Per household.
Oh, per household.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, per household. Yeah, so we've got 54,000 households that are not connected at all to the internet. We'll be fine if we could get to 10,000 in 5 years. That's our goal. But before we do that, we hope the public-private partnership will kick in, and the public officials will come to the table along with the banks and hospitals to, to finish the network, if you will, finish the access.
Can you tell us
what kind of speeds?
We're delivering in the high rises 35 megabits per second up and down off the Ciclu technology and G.fast. So,
I'm not aware of any of these networks that have really scaled to that size in terms of this mesh. Is there a reason that you think that you will?
Well, we have access to fiber. So the unique thing about Digital C is that we were a BTOP awardee and we built 9,000 miles of fiber, which we've basically sold because it's being used for large institutions and businesses. We have access to that fiber and anything we need to take it up into the millimeter wave for the next year and a half. So there's some urgency to it. I think there's an opportune moment with the city leadership coming together around getting this done. So,
great. Thank you so much. Thanks. All right. Next, we will hear from Ryan McDowell, who will be presenting on behalf of the Educational Service Unit 5 from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Hello. Economists suggest that we are approaching a third industrial revolution. In a recent study done by Oxford University, it is estimated that nearly 1/2 of American jobs will be replaced by automation or mechanization over the next 20 years. Think about that. Everything from fast food workers to truck drivers. Any job that can be automated or mechanized will be. With that in mind, I'd like you to think about a few questions. What tools are needed to ensure the success of the youth of today? How will we ensure that this young girl has access to the wealth of knowledge that exists on the internet when she goes home from school? These are the questions that I would like to answer with the ESU 5 homework hotspot. In Nebraska, it is estimated that 14 to 20% of K-12 students do not have access to home wired internet, or internet so slow and unreliable that they are unable to carry on basic digital education activities. Let's take a look at the pedagogy we at ESU 5 have designed to ensure the success of students with the digital age, or in the digital age. Our goal is to equip students with the digital age literacies defined by the International Society for Technology and Education standards for students. These standards provide a scope for promoting 7 characteristics of a future-ready student. If we can give students the tools they need to learn, we can deepen their knowledge and empower them to continue this cycle of learning beyond K-12 education. As curriculum moves to incorporate flipped classroom content, where at least some of the instruction is done online outside of class, and application-level homework is moved into the classroom, we wanted to provide a solution that would help bridge the homework gap that exists during after-school hours. As most of the Educational Service Unit 5 schools have moved to a one-to-one program, one computer to one student, we wanted to focus on providing a reliable source of internet for these devices. Our solution takes unlicensed TV whitespace equipment from Adaptrum and brings up point-to-point networks. These networks use unused TV channels, which are very prevalent in rural areas. We call these locations homework hotspots. By connecting off-the-shelf mesh Wi-Fi radios, we are then able to blanket an area with a usable Wi-Fi signal for students. Our current prototype system is set up and running in Beatrice, Nebraska, a city of about 12,000 people. We first started by bringing up a 3-radio base station located at our office, and then connecting 4 remote sites. These sites are used a single channel configuration running on the 500 megahertz band. Using this single channel, we are seeing speeds of around 7 megabits per second down and 4 megabits per second up, non-line of sight. If we move to a bonded channel configuration, we expect to see speeds around 12 megabits per second down and 9 megabits per second up. With 2.5 gigabits per second of bandwidth available between 10 school districts, we have a very reliable source of internet for this system. As most of our bandwidth is being used from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., we have a highly underutilized resource that can be tapped into after the normal school day. After successfully bringing up a few homework hotspots, we knew we needed a way to ensure prioritized access for students on the network. As all of our schools have integrated with Google Apps for Education, it makes sense for us to use Google Authentication for network access. We are currently working on bringing up a Radius server that will
sync with all of our school's Google domains, and grant users access with their school email account on any device. We are also planning to integrate these homework hotspot SSIDs into the devices that go home with each student with the one-to-one programs, which will provide a seamless connection. We have structured this project to create many partnerships that will incorporate these homework hotspots into each community and give rural students a window to the world. One project we are partnering with would aid first responders in disaster recovery through the use of off-grid TV whitespace SecondNet kits. With our established base stations spanning across a 3-county area, roughly the size of the state of Delaware, we would have a great network already established to bring up connection or communication in a disaster scenario. We know this project can connect the unconnected, bring communities together, and help bridge the homework gap so we can prepare students for future success. We have the students, we have the devices, we have the plan. With the support of this grant, we can give the students in rural Nebraska an opportunity to innovate and improve their education. Thank you.
All right, do we have any questions for Ryan?
Sure.
Is the
go ahead.
Is the prototype functioning now?
Yes, it's up and running right now. We had some rough starts to begin with. We have currently 3 remote sites working. We have one set up at the public library, the Community Players Theater in town, and then 2 public parks.
So are the families getting it in their homes?
Not in their homes. So that right now they have to go to a community location. I mean, that would be ideal, but right now we have community anchor institutions just across town where most people or students go to the parks, or there's an after-school program at our community theater, and we're seeing approximately 30 users every day at that program. I mean, they're our highest user right now. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, that answered my first question, which was where are the hotspots?
Yep. They're just spread across town right now, and we can work with community organizations to bring these up. I mean, mostly where the kids congregate. In Nebraska, the winters, I mean, it's hard for the outdoor areas. I mean, parks right now they're used more, but we would like to move those into communities.
I had two quick follow-ups. One was it looks like there's no cost. There's
Correct.
no revenue
So,
model.
I mean, our internet is paid for by taxpayers in E-rate. It's all E-rate eligible, so that's why it's prioritized mainly for students. I mean, we can partner with other organizations, but to fall in with E-rate guidelines, we would have to cost allocate if we opened it up to another organization.
The second part was, thanks, second part was on the, with students, I know from, do you have some sort of content filter?
Yes,
privacy laws.
Everything is, by law we have to content filter. We don't like to over filter. We just have to block the main things like pornography. Besides that, it's pretty open. They can get on anything else really that they want to. So,
okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And your longer term plans for sustainability, or is it public financing?
Yeah, it's public financing, and since each one of these base stations would be tied into a school. Each school has a tech person or a tech group of people that already know what they're doing. So just adding this on wouldn't be that big of a task for them. So in our eyes, it's pretty sustainable.
So you mentioned the ISTE standards and that kind of stuff. Are you doing any programming to help students understand how to use the technology you're giving them?
Yes, so we have, actually we're implementing programs right now with teachers, first and foremost, and then the students to learn how to be digital citizens and then how to actually use the technology. It's unbelievable. I remember a time when I didn't have internet, but now, that's all they know. So, they already know a lot of the skills they need to continue and use these devices. So, if we can show them how to properly use them without, to make the best use of their time on the internet,
So you're working on like a curriculum?
Yes, we're integrating the curriculum
okay.
currently. We have a new one that we are, our schools have just started, and that is on the agenda right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
time for
only
one
school
more?
devices, or can any device get
Any
on?
device, and most of our schools have implemented a one-to-one program, so if they have a device at home, they can also get on with that. So.
Quick follow-up. If it's 500 megahertz, how does the device actually use it? Is it Wi-Fi for the last?
We have Wi-Fi devices actually at each location. We're using Ubiquity, so they're mesh Unify devices. So. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
All right, next, hailing from Chattanooga, Tennessee, we have Jeff Milner and Andrew Rogers, who will be presenting us with NugaNet by the Enterprise Center.
I see you got rid of my 400-word title. And we'd actually hoped a colleague and partner of ours, Jasmine from Eastlake, the neighborhood we'll be talking about, would be joining us. She spent 8 hours in the Atlanta airport yesterday and is not going to make it before later today, and has done some great work in Eastlake, and we hope would be able to join us. But alas, we'll muddle on without her. Her final words were, "Bridge that equity gap." So I guess if we don't, we can't come home. So NugaNet, the birth of NugaNet. Public wireless is a sort of traditional smart city investment infrastructure application. We wanted to look at that as a way of thinking about the gig city in a new way, that instead of just investing in wireless, how to do that in a meaningful way, in a way that provided robust access and actually met residents where they were. NugaNet started just in some city-owned properties, and we realized even in a small neighborhood like the one we're working in, those city-owned properties are not places where certain communities, there are 5 distinct communities in this 1 square mile area. Some do go to city-owned properties, some go to the school, some go to churches. So we work with the community to identify 9 sites within Eastlake to provide a 0 to 5 minute walk radius to allow for public access. Eastlake itself, in looking for a community to test, you can see some of the statistics. You can see the redlining, it's down there in the corner, happening in the neighborhood, highly disconnected, average household income at or below the poverty line, a 1 square mile walkable community, mixed commercial, retail, residential, about 30% white, 30% black, 30% Hispanic, with a growing Guatemalan population. In short, a community that looked quite a bit like other neighborhoods around the country. In wanting to install something and how we could grow that 0 to 5 minute walk radius to robust gigabit access to homes, I'm going to let Andrew talk a little bit about the network infrastructure.
So what we're doing from a technical perspective is piggybacking on the investment that our city was already making in wireless infrastructure and providing some layers of connectivity on top of that and to extend that into the neighborhoods. What you see on the map here are the 9 sites where we worked with the city to identify places we could install new fiber-backed Wi-Fi access points that are the standard city public Wi-Fi offering that's in their YFD centers and parks, but in some non-traditional locations. Then what the rest of the solution is using a variety of technologies that I think you've already heard talked about, and you'll probably hear about more in the coming presentations, but obviously millimeter wave was interesting for us to get from locations like schools to down a street to start, to backhaul a mesh network. We've got the portable network kits that obviously I'm sure many teams will reference today. Ours are a little different because they're in dry bags because of Chattanooga's robust outdoor community. We can take ours on kayaks. But the main issue here has been about connecting those communities and the existing organizations with the resources they need to deliver these solutions to the citizens they already serve.
We've identified a number of partnerships in this sort of community infrastructure to tack on top of network infrastructure, working with UTC researcher and mobility applications, working with, sorry as I lose my notes, the Pediatric Health Improvement Coalition on top of these nodes in our mesh access points, air quality monitors to help both community providers and individuals take ownership of their own health, working with La Paz around the multilingual aspect of a community like this and how that full access applies in several languages. The goal of providing this infrastructure is not just to get connectivity into these neighborhoods, but to allow these neighborhoods to meet their most pressing needs, that we are developing agency, resiliency, and self-realization in these neighborhoods on top of wireless infrastructure. Working with Erlanger around potential health portal applications, thanks to the great work that Cleveland has already done and inspired in Chattanooga. And for us, as I forget about all of the, there is some of the network infrastructure. The most important part is with this change, it can't happen to a community, it happens in conjunction with the community. That's been Chattanooga's story forever, and that's how we've built out our prototype, the programming on top of it, and are moving forward.
All right. Time for the hot seats. Judges? I know you'll get sick of me saying it, but it's really fun to say. You should try it. Hot seats. All right.
Is there a plan for in-home access?
With the point-to-point millimeter wave solution, that will provide in-home and external access.
And can you talk a little bit about the ownership of the organization and its sustainability model?
So we are that kind of strange gray area between large bureaucracies, working with the city, university, our large ISP, and actually Public Electric Board. We have looked at this, so the NugaNet model is funded by the city, and then taking the low-cost options provided by some of these local ISPs and reducing those costs further. So there are some that are purchasable by individuals, but as far as that walkshed, building that into just smart city infrastructure that communities are already investing in.
Just to clarify that, that's so the majority of the bandwidth is bandwidth provided by the city of Chattanooga?
Through a network that they're paying for from EPB, yes.
Yeah, you just tap into theirs. And then you have private providers that are going to be able to provide their own bandwidth and resell it to customers potentially.
The provider being EPB, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Do you have a digital literacy program?
We do. And particularly sort of the train-the-trainer model built in around the nodes is based on our Tech Goes Home model, with 3,000 residents through that over the last few years. That's been, part of this work moves at the speed of trust, working with local organizations, community leaders, churches, that people are being served by people they know and trust, and it's not us dropping down and saying, this is what you need and how you need it. It's developed in collaboration with the communities themselves, always.
Tell us a little bit more about the backpacks.
So one of the things that we wanted to make sure we integrated was this idea of ownership on the network. So adding some of that last mile mesh connectivity, working with our digital fabrication labs in the schools in the area to build and develop the actual units that community leaders will be able to utilize, whether it's the neighborhood association, whether it's an individual neighborhood coming together to say, yes, we're going to do this. So using that as sort of a galvanizing piece, but also as usable technology that will tap into a gig-back fiber network and provide really robust connections in those neighborhoods.
Okay, so it would be the way, so it's not a temporary network that the backpack would provide, but it's the way to kind of package something for a neighborhood that they would then set up that would be the permanent connection?
Yes.
Okay.
And just related to that, so if a community group wants to bring access into their portion of the neighborhood, they request a backpack, or can you describe that process? And then also, when you go to the household, what would be the process for households requesting access?
And so that's one thing. We're on the household side, working with Jasmine as one of our community leaders in that neighborhood. a key part of the neighborhood association and a community arts organization. She's doing a bunch of surveying at the moment, so looking at what way folks feel most comfortable doing that, how we identify the first neighborhoods to come online, et cetera. As far as the process, we are working with a bunch of different organizations. The way we actually run our Tech Goes Home digital literacy program, so there are channels to work with us through folks just in their neighborhood.
I think you were getting into how we would expand this as well into other neighborhoods, and really this whole project, this prototype is around figuring out how this works in this 1 square mile neighborhood we've identified, and already other neighborhood leaders are saying, hey, we heard you're doing this thing, like how can we make that happen in our neighborhood? And it's really about finding that sustainable model that'll work for the utility, for the city, but obviously the city's already making these investments, and so we're just trying to make sure that those investments are being made with the best outcome for the citizens of Chattanooga.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. That's the last. Well, we're at time. We're trying to keep it fair. Thank you. Well, luckily for you, we're moving into a break. So.
I stole that backpack kayak joke from Jeff. I'm sorry. I just I spaced.
Your teammates. You can leave the microphone.
And you can have your photographer back now.
All right, yes, so we have an important break right now. So there is swag on the table. If you haven't already grabbed yours, please do so. Go see our colleague Amy. And then there are drinks and snacks in the kitchen if you need anything. Restrooms are down the hallway and around the corner. And it would be amazing if you could be back here by 1:10, which actually gives you some bonus time. It was supposed to be 5. Now you get 10. You're welcome.
Let's get more questions.
Every question you asked was what I was going to ask.
It's like, actually,
Check.
We're gonna get started again pretty quick here. Thanks for finding your seats. I'll just give you 1 minute. Everyone's finding their place. I'll wait for the judges to get back. That seems like a good idea. I just did a sweep, but I think we should be good. All right. There we go. Judges are back in place. All right. So our next presentation will be Alan Steele from Southern Connected Communities Network. Well, that's his innovation from the Highlander Research and Education Center in Newmarket, Tennessee.
How's it going, y'all? Y'all have heard the saying, give someone a fish and they'll eat for a day, but teach someone to fish and they'll eat forever. Well, you're about to see that we are revolutionizing that old saying. So when you live in the rural South, especially the hollers of Appalachia, your kids' education, your next job, your health care, and more importantly in this moment, perhaps your right to a political voice of your own storytelling, all are limited by slow, expensive, unreliable, and corporate-controlled internet connectivity, and that's if it exists at all. So because rural people can't wait for more false promises from the global economy or a bunch of politicians, we're claiming internet like the human right it has become and building a local digital economy governed by us and for us. So when I say that you're about to see something that is revolutionary, it's because revolution in Appalachia and the rest of the South isn't the exception, it's the rule. And our people are always just ahead of that curve. You see, we're not just teaching someone else to fish, we're doing something really, really dangerous. We're teaching each other how to fish. The only thing that's missing, well, that'd be you and your investment. So have a look.
The Southern Connected Communities Project was born out of our residents' desire not only to bring broadband to rural Appalachia, but to also accomplish ownership, equity, and affordability. A wireless backbone is delivered 25 miles from the city of Knoxville to our tower via the public 11 gigahertz spectrum. Broadband is then redistributed to our communities using line-of-sight AC technology, provisioned through ubiquity air fibers. The real power of our project, however, is the ability of our communities to own and understand this technology. In this way, this solution is a model for what a community-controlled broadband ISP could be in rural Appalachia in the South.
So currently we're getting backhaul sent to this tower that we have on site, and the tower is an 80-foot tower at the top of this massive hill. And then we put Ubiquity's rocket air system, basically sending signals to each one of our buildings, and we have, I think, 6 buildings connected to it right now. And then we capture the signal at the office, and then or whatever building we're in. Basically what that means is installing a dish, pointing the dish to the tower from the building, and then capture the signal and put it into a Wi-Fi router in the building. We're using Ubiquity's hardware to run all of this, and then we've used Unify, which is actually Ubiquity software, to basically monitor each Wi-Fi system in each building throughout the property. So yeah, that's pretty close to what we usually get. I would say On a normal day, we get about 70-ish download speeds and maybe 40 upload speeds.
We don't get taught how a lot of these things work, like how our TVs work, how our internet works, how our lights work, any of that stuff, and so it makes it seem like magic. And people don't always realize that it's something like we can understand, and it's something we can operate. The goal isn't necessarily to do things the fastest possible way. It's to do it in the way that everyone is bought in and understands what they're getting into and wants it, and that it's a process of empowerment for everybody involved. So our role is to help people, not only to educate people as in just giving them information, but in learning with people.
My name is DJ Coker. I'm from Duff, Tennessee, which is like at the cusp of the Clear Fork Valley in Campbell County. Internet in my area is too expensive, and I'm not able to afford it. Owning our own internet, that's exciting. Having it in general is exciting too, but have the ability of owning it means we can control it.
We come to like the ideal of owning our own and having the line of sight over fiber because it's more cost effective, and owning your own provides jobs in the area. If the line falls, it's not going to throw the internet out for hours or whatever it takes to fix it. It's just more feasible for the rural area than fiber. When we started this over 3 years ago, it seemed more like a dream, like just an ideal. And after all our research and visiting other communities, and it's an attainable dream. It's one that we can make come true because we have the knowledge, we have the skills. They're very easy. So we think we can do this. We know we can do this.
All right. Any questions?
You mentioned community-owned. Can you explain exactly how the ownership structure of the network works?
Yeah, so great question. When we got into this, the idea wasn't just to go in and provide internet. It was to have our community members develop a sustainable model of what that internet would look like for them in terms of ownership. So right now we have community members in 3 different communities, Newmarket, Cosby, and Clear Fork, who are coming up with a cooperative model of internet ownership. So that model will be based on membership dues. Each household will have a vote on that membership, and we're currently coming up with a cooperative structure for those memberships. Luckily, we have a number of electric cooperatives in the area that our members are also members of, and the ability to use their information and their resources to develop a cooperative model of our own.
Quick follow-up. 11 gigahertz links are not that cheap to build. Where did the initial financing come from?
So one of the lucky developments was there's a local company called HollerNet who actually have a system, backhaul system that runs from the First Tennessee Bank building in Knoxville, Tennessee, across to our tower. They wanted to be able to expand their network, so we came to an agreement where they gave us our backhaul system that we are using to distribute that, and as a part of that agreement, they are sharing part of our tower to connect their own customers. In the future, there could be the possibility of doing a fiber by power line to our towers rather than having a wireless backhaul.
So I was going to ask about the backhaul, but so is HollerNet a for-profit or is it a community-owned?
They are a for-profit private enterprise currently providing our backhaul.
Are there a substantial number of people that are kind of locked out because of their homes being on the wrong part of the holler or too many trees in between?
Yeah, so that's also a great question. The way that we like to see it is in the south we build quilts well, I'm from Scotland, so I'm not from the South, but I'm adopted into the South.
We let them come down.
So we see the internet in the South as a mesh of different solutions. So you're quite right. In certain areas, it will involve using relays to get to people that are maybe through trees, or having utilizing infrastructure in terms of height and buildings to get through that. But right now, we're just dealing with the line of sight.
And just to clarify, when you said that HollerNet's providing your backhaul, are they also providing your bandwidth, or are you procuring bandwidth separately from a tier 1 connector and then distributing that as part of this model?
Yeah, so actually HollerNet are tier 2. They are providing our bandwidth also. In the future, I would like to connect via a fiber backhaul to preferably an electric cooperative backbone system. In Tennessee, I'm not sure if you're aware, but electric cooperatives have built a fiber backbone network that they're unable to spend their energy money on to the home. So what we are looking to do is proposing to be a to-the-home provider connected to the electric
and are you purchasing the bandwidth from them, or are they giving it to you right now?
So right now they're giving us a backhaul in return for leasing space on our tower.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. All right, next we'll have Zach Giles from New York City Mesh from New York, New York.
Thank you. I'm Zach Giles from NYC Mesh. NYC Mesh is a decentralized, community-owned mesh network in New York City. It's for both local use between neighborhoods across the city, and also provides access to the internet. We have about 200 nodes online today, with about 2,000 people have registered to host a node in their apartment or their home or their building. And out of those 2,000 people, we have about 850 plus or minus members in our Slack chat that are actively talking about this in a different channel for every different neighborhood, and many general channels, hardware channels, and so on. In the last year, through our Supernode 1, we've transferred about 100 terabytes delivered to people from the internet and across different neighborhoods through 6 community hubs, and we have additional Supernodes coming online very soon. We're largely project-based, so every time we, in the very beginning, it was quite a slow start. And after each of our different Supernode projects, and now the Mozilla WINS NYCHA project, you can see our growth has really skyrocketed and kind of follows the trend of each different project coming into play. This is an example of an installation, on a typical installation on the roof. This picture is kind of special because we have 2 people in this picture that are from Baltimore, and they took the train down to New York to see how an installation works so they can learn about their installations in their kind of city and get some thoughts about it. So we're trying really hard to work with other cities and get meshes working in those areas as well. For the Mozilla WINS prototype, we deployed a new neighborhood hub into a New York City Housing Authority public housing building, which is for low-income housing. And we did this in partnership with a sustainable energy company called Block Power, who has a sensor network for measuring and monitoring temperatures and energy. And they used our mesh as the backhaul for their sensor network. This hub also provided access to the residents and the public areas of the building, in addition to a train station nearby, a park, and the surrounding areas. This is a picture of the New York City Housing Authority building. On top, you can see a small water tower. Here's a picture of the water tower where we placed our antennas along with police repeater antennas just adjacent to them. Here's an example of the inside, the mesh router we have, local access, which goes down through a corridor as well, and a Raspberry Pi for local mesh services, in addition to many other sites that have a similar setup. Here is some of the installation team and the antenna. So the impact of this prototype is that in addition to this building itself, the sensor network and so on, we were able to connect another 20 buildings to this hub in the first 3 months, which makes this one of our most connected hubs and already makes us start thinking about upgrading it past this point. Here's a before and after picture for that neighborhood. We have a substantial number of nodes already, but many neighborhoods are out of reach for us, and this is an example of a neighborhood that just filled out right away based on this hub immediately. So more generally, we propose that about 20 super nodes and 30 of these type of hubs can cover most of the city of New York. What this does is, one important aspect of this is that not all of these sites are cost effective to implement because people can't afford to place a hub in their building, or a lot of will go to these buildings like they'll be interested, the housing developments and so on will be interested, but we just can't give them so much funding directly. So the main blocker for implementing these kind of things is funding. We're also thinking always to improve ourselves as well. So we're thinking about security, resiliency, core infrastructure, innovation. In the security front, we realize that mesh networks are inherently owned by the community, so data can transfer in any direction. A lot of our legacy links are not encrypted. We're working on encrypting those by converting them as we upgrade them. But we do see statistically most of our traffic is SSL and TLS, but we want to make sure we provide a good baseline for in-mesh traffic and so on. In the resiliency front, based on our model, our super node hub node model, we kind of reduce the blast radius of any node hijack or any kind of mistakes. Additionally, route filtering helps that and so on. So we're trying, this model kind of, maybe even one neighborhood might break at a maximum, but it shouldn't cross over. But we do want to balance that with making sure that we automatically, that we provide auto meshing so people can join the network without asking anybody, because it is an open community network. On the sustainability front, we want to make sure, we currently have only one major supernode, but we just signed a new contract for an additional second supernode, which should be starting right now. And we do always want to make sure we're continuing to doing peering, donated bandwidth, donated transit, additional connections and other ways we can connect people. And we'd love to see a regional network in the area that connects between Boston, New York, and Philly, and so on. And lastly, on the innovation front, we want to make sure that we send the message that mesh is a design, not just a software, and so that custom hardware is no longer required. You can do this with off-the-shelf components. And so we're taking a pragmatic approach from that. We're moving that specialized tech into the open by taking that was previously carrier grade and using it for people in their homes directly. We're building tools around that so that we mimic what could be like the future internet, or the internet for us in our area, which helps people with an open choice of their hardware so that they can use just any hardware that is able to route traffic. And this ultimately increases the knowledge of the tech workers, or everybody, so they can understand how tech is not just a magic. Thank you very much.
All right, questions for Zach?
Good.
Am I correct in understanding that your backhaul is basically through free peering at the IXP?
Yeah, so we have our own BGP ASN, our own IP addresses, and so on. We're on an IXP. We also get some full tables from different donated companies that like to give us a full table. We also get a large portion of our traffic directly from peers. We're coming on to another donated transit at our second site real soon. But we do find that somewhere around 70 to 80% of the actual bandwidth, the content, is delivered directly via the internet exchange. So, yes.
So you're kind of dependent on the kindness of strangers in a way to survive. What would you do if that model failed?
Sure. Yeah, so based on the fact that we have our own BGP, ASN, and so on, we can always procure fairly cheap internet by peering with somebody. There's a whole bunch of fairly low-cost providers. Once you're in the data center, you can just cross-connect with them. But additionally, the mesh itself is still a real proper mesh, so anyone can decide to share their internet connection from their home and so on. And we have kind of an internal tiering system that will prefer to route the traffic through a nice, pure net-neutral connection at a supernode before it goes out of a home connection or a donated connection.
Can you talk about what it means to be community-owned and what that ownership model looks like?
Sure, yeah. So right now we're a project of the Internet Society, and based on this, all of our community, our super nodes and our hub nodes are run and owned by us as a community as a whole, but the nodes on people's homes, they pay for them, they own them, and they can run them. We will help them run them if they want, and various volunteers throughout the neighborhoods help people run the nodes and kind of take ownership of those nodes. But we as an organization don't own them. So it's actually fully owned and distributed by various people across the entire city, while trying to maintain the community parts, like the important pieces, as a whole. Does that answer your question?
Can you say more about the sensor network that you mentioned?
Sure. We didn't develop the sensor network. We're just happy that other people are using cool things on our network. So this company, Block Power, is monitoring temperatures of water pipes and corridors and power usage and so on, and they're reporting that back. They're part of some other grant process in New York City to try and make buildings more efficient to reduce wasted energy and so on. So we're just using them, we're allowing them to use the mesh as backhaul to their servers.
I have two quick questions.
Yes, please.
Is the mesh link themselves, are they encrypted?
Some are and some aren't. We have several different generations. The new ones are, the old ones aren't.
Okay, and then are you planning on doing anything with EasyMesh, the WFA's?
The EasyMesh W, sorry?
Wi-Fi Alliance's new EasyMesh, are you planning on integrating with that?
I'm not familiar with it, I'm sorry.
It seems like your location is one of the hardest in terms of your success will create more interference, making it harder as bandwidth needs escalate. How do you plan on dealing with that?
Sure. So this architecture we've kind of made with the super nodes and hub nodes isn't a top-down architecture to kind of say we're selling you internet. It's just that in New York we have these high skyscrapers between these various neighborhoods, and that's kind of like different cities almost. And so we use this architecture to jump over. And so in this style, we actually prefer or demand point-to-point links between supernodes and hub nodes. So every supernode region kind of starts the network over again in that sense. Although it is taking some bandwidth from the air, is more of a dedicated channel than it is taking away from the broad spectrum. So it is a concern, but I think it's a regional concern rather than like a citywide concern. I hope that answers your question.
Can you tell us how
Yes.
ordinary users might find out about you? What are you doing in terms of outreach? Who are your customers who are getting internet access?
Sure. The members of our network are just whoever wants to see it. All of our access points have public access points that are just open and available for anybody. It's a lot of people talking to people and finding out about us. We get various, like every type of person comes to our mesh meetups, and we have we have lots of marketing that's going on. I mean, we're not doing the marketing, but there's lots of media that's picked us up, local radio stations, newspapers, and so on. So it's kind of word of mouth, but it grows really fast. And but yeah, it's an open access network. People can ask for it in their home, and we'll show up and help them install it. And you can even use it as a public access point on the street if you want to.
Great, thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, if you can believe it, we've come to our last Smart Community Network demo, which will be Joanna Alvarado representing the San Antonio Housing Authority from San Antonio, Texas.
Good afternoon. How is everybody? I know I'm last, but y'all can hang on, right? So thank you for giving us the opportunity to bring you our Smarty, our solar mesh and re-engineered technology innovation. In 2013, we began to narrow the digital divide by connecting up to 50 of our community rooms with public Wi-Fi. But an interesting thing started happening. A new community started to unfold. When we started seeing our residents gather after hours anywhere they could connect to the internet, we saw mothers with their children using their own devices so that they could connect to our free Wi-Fi. We knew then that we needed to do more to build our digital equity for our clients. So enter the NSF-WINS competition. We decided to choose Casiano Homes because it is one of our largest and oldest properties. We have over 70 properties at the San Antonio Housing Authority. With Casiano Homes, it houses over 1,800 residents and with 459 units, and it spans 50 acres of land. It is a very, very large community for us, and it is a lofty goal. With all of our properties, usually we have power and bandwidth challenges as usual. So with that, Casiano Homes definitely brought the idea to bring in the existing 42 solar poles. So we have 42 solar poles throughout the property, and it was very exciting that we could use traditional solar lighting to re-engineer it with solar energy and Wi-Fi mesh technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to roll the video to tell you more about Smarty.
Panel. This solar panel connects to our charge controller, which has connections for our battery, the solar panel, and the load. What's unique about this charge controller is that we can connect a Bluetooth dongle, and this allows us to check the stats of the solar equipment via a cell phone or a tablet. Charge controller also connects to a Texas PoE injector. The PoE injector is unique because it converts 12-volt power to 24-volt power which our access point and our receiving microwave require the 24 volts. We have one Ethernet cable that's going to a Ubiquiti surge protector, and from the Ubiquiti surge protector it goes out to our receiving microwave. Across the street there you can see that we have a device called a Rocket. This device connects to a layer 2 switch on the other end. Here at the receiving end we have a receiving microwave that receives about 100 megabits per second. So this is a Ubiquiti Mesh AP. It's actually powered by the microwave's secondary port. So this device has a radius of about 600 feet and it can connect roughly about 25 users.
So you're here now on a browser. So can you go ahead and go to the SAISD site? What we're trying to do is we're trying to bring internet to those that don't have it, can't afford it, because we want to provide opportunity. We want to provide opportunity for children to be able to read books, to be able to get on the World Wide Web and get access to all the information, as well as to you to be able to do shopping and get school supplies and stuff like that. So we're providing Smarty as you being able to access it.
You get on the internet and it's like, I want to cut it off, but I know they need it and they like it. For what I'm paying now, I would rather go somewhere else.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
All right,
I appreciate
thank you
it.
so much.
Thank you. So we believe that Smarty can deliver on the 3 ability words: sustainability, affordability, and scalability. Let's start with scalability. Right now, we are working with our partners to purchase bandwidth when we can. In case you're wondering what we would do with these, with the grand prize, we would go out and purchase more bandwidth, probably wholesale. So let's move on to sustainability. I'm sorry. So sustainability is about building green communities. We at SAHA are in works and in talking to solar engineers and architects to build this solar Wi-Fi from the design concept in our new communities, in new developments. It's also using solar energy. So it's clean and simple. There's no trenching, there is no cabling. And I lost, sorry. There's no trenching and there is no cabling, and we are not having to pay for extra devices in resident homes. On to affordability. Affordability, I'm very proud to say that my team did this as a DIY project where we spent over just under $1,000 to build it. It was built with dedication and love. SAHA is about opportunity. Opportunity lives here. That is our mantra. Currently, our Wi-Fi is connecting over 2,000 people weekly. We know that Smarty has potential to connect more of our communities of elderly and the handicapped and our family communities. We believe it is the future of our public housing, and it is vital to their growth and to their education. And there's solar. There's Smarty in all its glory, absorbing the sun. With your help, we know that we can continue our work in narrowing the digital divide. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
So why is power a problem?
So we have over 70 properties, and we're always looking to see how we can build the internet and provide more Wi-Fi other than in our community rooms. So when we look at our properties, we don't always have power available to us. So we recently did a property where we actually did power sharing, where we found power outside of the apartment, and we were able to take one of those plugs and actually put in another type of mesh technology and be able to connect a family property. That's one of our first family properties. So because all of our properties don't have power, we knew that we needed to conquer that challenge as well as bandwidth.
So yeah, we tried to do a property before, and we got a quote for $30,000 just for 11 buildings. So some of these older properties, they do not have house meters. So it's hard to actually get the power to power our equipment in some cases.
Are you providing any kind of services in addition to this, like hackathons in the open space to bring people together, or providing digital literacy training services for people and computer access? Maybe they don't have computers at home.
Oh, yes. We're part of Connect Home. We're one in 28 of housing authorities that were asked to participate in that HUD program. It's a national program. And with that, we do digital literacy program. We have digital ambassadors. We train probably about 1,400 residents. We've probably given away about 600 devices. Every time they go through the training, they will receive a device at the end of that training. I think we've trained over 800 individuals at this time. We also work with Girls Inc., Code.org, with other partners to bring programming and different events to our properties so that more people can get involved with technology and do more training.
You mentioned that if you got the award that you would put the money toward bandwidth. I'm curious, when that money ran out, what would keep the network running after then?
Well, we would keep entering competitions. We would keep begging. We actually have had some really good partners with USAA and Google Fiber and Wells Fargo. And every time we get money, we go and we do more training. We may hire more digital ambassadors, and we also do connectivity. Connect Home is about providing devices, connectivity, and also digital literacy programs. So when we get the money, we go out there and we look at our properties and we try to connect more. As a matter of fact, we're going to connect another one with our funds from USAA, our Westway community, which is also a family property.
One more question.
Could you talk a little bit about any security in place about this, especially around like rogue nodes or man-in-the-middle attacks or anything like that?
So we do client isolation on the access points. We integrate OpenDNS for the content filtering. We do bandwidth limiting as well. And along with the digital literacy training, they do train users on how to be secure on an open Wi-Fi.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and while that was our last smart community entrant, we still have the whole entire off-the-grid internet demos to go. We're going to take a really quick break, so if you could just kind of, stand up, shake it out, go to the bathroom if you have to. We'll be getting started right at 1:45, so thank you. talking to myself.
No worries.
Is this supposed to be? Sorry, I
No
tried to
worries.
save it.
So this, having a private partner is not having that running along.
You don't have as much risk. All right, if you could find your seats.
You don't have as much control.
And
that
contain your comments till the next break. That'd be great, great.
No, they only go to business.
All right, we're going to get started with the off-the-grid internet demos, which will be kicked off by Jonathan DeHaan, who will be presenting the Baculus project from Brooklyn, New York.
I think we should all go to Puerto Rico for these demos.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan DeHaan, and I'm demoing Baculus, which is a community network in a backpack. It's a mesh network made of existing open source software running on off-the-shelf hardware that an individual could source and set up today. They can source it from Amazon or eBay or local electronic stores or hardware stores. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So what is it? It's a backpack meant to provide the main means of communication for a neighborhood. After discussions with people from the Red Hook Initiative, the group that set up the network at Standing Rock, and others, we identified that chat and maps are the most useful or wanted, if they didn't have it, applications. And in addition to the chat and map applications, we distribute a full copy of all the instructions needed and tools needed to assemble your own backpack from existing ones. And what does it look like? Well, this is kind of a meta screenshot. You know, I'm on it right now. The main application is this chat application that you see right here. It's built on Scuttlebutt, which is a vibrant, active open source protocol that has many different clients. This is the web client that we by default give to people, so they don't have to install anything when they connect to the network. And it's a pretty rich client. Like my slides are on here, right? But also it supports video, it supports audio, it supports sharing locations. So if we go to kind of earlier posts, we should see some locations. I might have to, it's pretty small text up here, but we provide offline mapping, so you can go and, well, maybe not right now. We'll move on from that, back to the slides. So in addition to the chat and the maps, these applications work completely offline. So like this is not connected to any upstream internet provider, and if these backpacks turn on and off, they'll eventually sync with each other. There's 3 here, and later I can show turning them off and on and seeing how the chat gets sent across the network. So, even though we are using off-the-shelf software and off-the-shelf hardware, there's still a lot of work to be done. And the 2 most pressing things that we need to work on are community development and building applications, and this is what financing Bacos would allow us to do. It allows us to go into communities that we've identified where we have connections with leadership and install these nodes, do workshops, and listen and hear what the community needs are, and making sure that the tools are supporting those needs. The communities we've identified are in rural China that have no internet, doing surveying in Uganda, a local setup in Red Hook, and figuring out stress testing the low or no power situation in Puerto Rico, and we've been talking with different leaders in those neighborhoods. Even though we need to be doing the installs to find out what tools are missing from these backpacks, we still have some generally useful work to be done on the application front. So having better wayfinding to be able to connect to basically answer the question, hey, who's okay in the case of a disaster, just having lists of people on the map that are checked in, and wayfinding between backpacks. These are portable. They're meant to be installed before a disaster happens and used as normal communication, so that in the case of a disaster, you're already used to the user interface and getting online, but sometimes nodes will go down, and then you'll need to reconnect, and that's when you put the backpack on and wayfind your way to another place. We're also looking at supporting other experimental features like setting up personal websites using DAT or streaming, live streaming over IPFS. And I encourage you to connect to the network, after everyone's talks, and play around with the chat applications and see how it's used, because it's really hard to just show screenshots and get a feel for what this can and can't do. And thank you for your time.
Great, thanks. Questions?
This seems aimed more at the kind of people that are responding, or more sophisticated type folks. Am I reading that correctly, or is this something that you would expect anyone to be using on the day that the power goes out?
Yeah, so we don't want this to be like a disaster happens, let's move into an area and set up a solution. It's definitely meant to be beforehand. And as far as the audience that I'm trying to connect to, it's for passionate individuals. All the hardware is off the shelf. It's just 3 pieces, and nothing of the setup is specific to those pieces. So if you want to swap out with whatever you have locally, you don't have to go through me to just start doing it. And I feel like, yes, if we want to do an install in a community, then we need to be working with those community leaders, and they're the ones that are going to identify who are most likely to use the software and use the system and really want to take ownership of them for themselves.
What would you do with the prize money if you won?
I would install in those 5 locations, like immediately. Just go to them, build backpacks, and start getting better user, just seeing what tools people need. I also have participated in, so like with Secure Scuttlebutt, I applied for a grant to improve the underlying networking layer, and I would use a little bit of that money to fund the next round of Scuttlebutt. Like they have a co-op for funding new projects, because I want, for the sustainability of the project, I really think it needs to be beyond just these backpacks and be part of a larger community. So I'd basically reimburse them for the small grant that I got. Yeah.
And you mentioned, I'm not sure if I missed it, but did you specifically cover the affordability? How much does one of these cost, and are there ongoing costs and operational costs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the least expensive build out that we did, like if you go to the website and you look at how to build one, it's like a build log, because we're hoping that people make different versions of it. The least expensive that we've done was around like $170. There's like a $70 proof of concept one, but it wouldn't work as seamlessly as these do. These are closer to $400, and most of that cost is in the battery. We wanted to make sure that it's really portable, and so the whole thing's under 10 pounds. I encourage you to pick it up and like walk around with it. Just be careful with the poles. But yeah, each node roughly costs $400 in the that you're seeing here.
In a disaster relief scenario with the chat software, is there any way that you can disambiguate users so they can identify central authorities who might be speaking as opposed to citizens?
So the way that the UX presents people, you're kind of self-assigning your identity, and you use like hashtags. Basically, everything's signed. So if you have identified yourself as an authority and you start posting and people recognize that is the authority, every single message is signed and can, unless you lose your like private keys, it's valid that yours are there. And you can have the default page go to a particular tag. It supports wikis as well, so you can have editable documents.
Great, thank you. It's amazing how fast 9 minutes can go, isn't it? All right. So our next demo will be Wind Off-Grid Services for Everyday People by the Guardian Project, which will be presented by Nathan Freitas and Fabiola from Boston, Massachusetts.
All right, roll the video, please. We'll be talking over the video. So we've been, roll the video and let's start our time. All right, we've been working for a number of years in helping to address off-grid network situations caused by both disaster and politics. While many of these were well-meaning and technically sound, they often relied on connected internet models and browser solutions that really were either quickly saturated or created a less than ideal user experience in a mobile-first world. So Wind is a connected sneaker-net model that focuses on using interactions at the edge of the network, nearby between people, devices, and small nodes, and through apps and developer libraries and new protocols, we enable this. So in this scenario, Fabi is a relief worker, and I am a survivor. I've lost everything. I have my phone, but I don't have internet. Is there anything you can help me with?
I can help you get connected at least. Please connect to the Wi-Fi network.
Okay, I see that. And then what, I install this app on here?
Yes, it's an app store. It will help you find maps, guides, services, and much more to keep you connected throughout the day.
Great. And this is all free?
Yes, and it's fast too. It works on local networks, and it will pop throughout the day, telling you of nearby networks and people to get you connected. Okay, so how do I find like people and services and things that I need to get around in the day? The Wind network will tell you when you're close by to a service using chimes.
Okay. And so I can use a map app and Chime to find things around me?
Yes.
And what if there's no WIN network?
Then you can use this flash drive, and it has the whole app store. You can update it every day on a relief center.
Great, popped right up. Thank you. So we've been working with the F-Droid open source app store platform for a number of years to create off-grid nearby app stores that are secure and verifiable and that can work over the internet, they can work locally, they can work off-grid through library boxes and pirate boxes, and they enable secure software and content distribution. We feel content and app distribution is a key part of any modern network and something that we focused on, as you can see here, peer-to-peer sharing. In the next scenario, two friends meet on the street. Fabi, what are you doing?
They said there was some kind of internet here, but it's slow and it keeps dropping.
Well, you should try this WIN network. They have this Chime app they gave me, and I can see different access points and connect to them. There's a bunch like right here. It shows that they're around. So
How do you learn how to do that?
at the Relief Center, they had these hotspots, and they gave me this. So now I can give this to you, and it has a mirror of the whole app store and all the content, so you can get the app.
Got it. Thank you.
So Chime is a browser for off-grid services. It's kind of like Pokemon Go. You can go around and discover and explore and share. You can use Bluetooth beacon technology, QR codes, and NFC to share these beacons. The beacons can be encoded in URI format, and they include not only like the network service, but also location, time availability, services available at the hotspot, and that can then be shared in a variety of methods, as I said. So that's how you discover what services are available when. Lastly, we're going to talk about eyewitness reports and testimony and documentation. This is a key part of recovering from disaster situations. I'm a journalist, and Fabi is a survivor with a story to tell.
I heard this is a place to tell my story.
It is. We're gathering reports on this WIN box here, and you can tell a story, message for your family, and it'll all be recorded and uploaded in a secure, verifiable way. So do you have the App Store?
Yes.
You can get the Open Archive app and record a message.
My name is Fabiola, and last night my village was destroyed in the earthquake. We were located on the east side of the Green Valley, and now all the buildings are gone. Please send help.
So just publish it, and it should show up right here.
Done. So the Open Archive app captures media and creates verifiable custom chain data. So any citizen can create media that is verifiable proof of what is going on.
So through our work on protocols like Ionda, platforms like F-Droid for nearby sharing, App Store distribution, new ways of discovery through Chime, as well as partnering with Library Box, Open Archive, and many other programs, we really feel we can create a rich open ecosystem for wind that goes beyond what we can do and enables work by many people.
So everything you've seen today is part of our working prototype, and most of it is already in use in many parts of the world.
So with your support, we'll continue our work in growing this and supporting our work on wind. Thank you very much.
Hot seat. I haven't said it in a while. Hot seat time. All right, who wants to start?
You said that Chime and Wind were in use in many parts of the world. Could you talk about some practical examples where it has been used?
Talk about Cuba.
All right, so we recently got in contact with a group called El Paquete, which is distributed in Cuba. It's a 1 terabyte hard drive. And Cubans basically get that instead of internet. They pay for it weekly. Roughly 2 million people in Cuba gets it every week, and includes movies and apps and everything that they could get from internet that they cannot. We got all our apps in there, and we got some contacts over there that are testing our apps offline to see if that could help them.
So El Paquete can carry a mirror of a F-Droid store, and then there's physical mobile phone stores that then host a Wi-Fi hotspot of a Windbox with the F-Droid store. So we're also working throughout Latin America and Asia and more programs that are a little bit more sensitive on the human rights side.
What are the setup costs? I understand that it would be free for users, but what about the back end and the infrastructure? What does it take to establish this network?
Yeah, like the internet, it really can scale up and down. You know, if you're doing a journalist and you have sitting in a cafe taking reports, you can use a $15 little tiny box to capture those and then mirror those to a larger box. The apps themselves can also work peer-to-peer, so it scales up and down quite dramatically. Our goal is really not to provide sort of a backhaul reliable way in that same sense, but that you can have many of these small boxes that are quite inexpensive, people using their existing phones, and then through aggregation and mirroring can move that to the internet. So I think it's available at all price points effectively.
Since you're talking about developing something really new in terms of infrastructure, could you just talk through, like in Cuba, when it's delivered with El Paquete, what exactly people are experimenting with and what they're using it for?
Right. The goal, right now people essentially just plug a hard drive into their computer or their phone and they browse files, which is a very poor user experience. If we can move these sneaker nets, or it's the same, they connect to a hotspot and they use a browser. If we can build kind of a mobile experience like they're used to with the rest of their lives when they plug in that drive or connect to that hotspot, then they get an app store opens. So you plug the drive in, you get an app store. You browse it, you install apps, there's movies, there's guides. That's what we were doing live right here. So really being in that mobile first mentality, but using sneaker nets and using these hotspots to create, so browser-based chat, great, but it doesn't work when you're not connected. So having offline queuing, nearby sharing as well, so that, we have to work as well as WhatsApp and Google Play if we want to compete with those.
All right, one more question.
So could you walk me through briefly how the hotspots get set up? Assume there's a disaster, people respond. How do the hotspots get set up in different areas?
So in the case of, say, this F-Droid App Store, the phone itself can be a hotspot. So you can turn your phone into an app store, and people can connect to you, albeit 4 to 6 people can connect to a phone. And it's all running there, digitally signed and everything. The next level up is with a Raspberry Pi or a cheap TP-Link router where you flash firmware, which takes a bit more skill, but that's the skill level that like a local phone shop or that someone in a school would have. And so what we see is that on the one hand, we build apps that have millions of users today. So we build a variety of things, but F-Droid itself has a rich user community. So our goal is to actually build that into places as, hey, this is another way to get software, so that it's ready. And second, to encourage and work with journalists, which we already do, disaster relief, community organizations, to adopt these things ahead of time.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, our next demo will be done by Subaleka from Project Lantern. Project Lantern will be the project presented by Paper and Equator from New York, New York.
You see the Lantern hotspot last night? Just need to connect it here. That's what I was SSID. I'm just gonna play with it.
Thank you.
Probably not. I don't know if I didn't break any rules.
Hi, I'm Subaleka. I'm from Project Lantern. And our project is about a year old, and thank you to WINS Challenge, we were able to give birth to this beautiful project. And really, Project Lantern is this little keychain-sized device, a little bigger than a keychain, but it's able to provide Wi-Fi for about 20 to 100 meters. And what happens is that any device, be it a phone, tablet, or a computer, connects to it, it delivers targeted apps to the browser. And now, that's just the setup. I'm going to go, and every single person in our team, almost every single person in the team has gone through a disaster, so it's been a personal experience to develop this device. It's on right now, so it might blink some lights and things like that. So one of our main goals with this project was we wanted to gather and structure information when the infrastructure falls apart. And sync to the cloud when systems are back up. Now I'm going to take a short pause from my presentation to show a demo, or at least kickstart a demo. Here you have two connections. One is the phone itself. That's what you see here on the left, the smaller one. And in the bottom it says lantern B. That's the lantern that's sitting on that black stairway. And it's connected to that, and the apps are being delivered from there. And on my computer is lantern A, so that's just the browser that I'm connected to. Now, I'm just going to go through a few apps that are available here, and of course the platform is completely open. Every single thing in our project is open. Anybody can build it, modify it, whatever they want to do with it. The apps that we currently have available are people to be able to find where the supplies are, report that they are safe, and report any road conditions they have, and also just kind of look into the network to see how many people are connected. I'll just go into the supplies on the computer now. These are the different supplies stations that are available. So it's a cafe, a hospital. These areas have been reported to be having these resources at this moment. I'm just going to go into the hospital. And we have a map that will load soon. So for now, there's medical supply here. And as you can see, either neighbors or official channels could basically come and validate that this supply is actually there, or it has run out. So they'd be able to inform us that. Now I'm going to go into the phone as well to the same space, so I can just show you how the sync works, because that's kind of one of our main technologies here. So I'm going to El Camino Hospital. So there's medical here and medical here. I'm just going to go ahead for the Lantern A to tell Lantern A that there's internet also available at the station at this point. And now I'm going to switch back to my presentation, because as you will see, there'll be green lights starting to flash when they start to talk to each other, but it usually takes 15 to 20 seconds. Instead of waiting for that, I'm going to continue on to explain about Lantern itself. One of the main things we followed through Lantern is that it was very important to us it's powered by community. As you can see, everything in Lantern is fully open. In about 30 seconds, with no technical expertise, anybody can assemble the lantern, and it costs, at this moment, around $50 to do this. It's completely open source. Anybody can get it from our Git and modify it and build upon it. And our app platform also is completely modular. Yes, we have certain framework that we have built the apps on that somebody can use and modify it and kind of build upon it. And another important thing is that once systems go back online, everything gets synced back to the cloud. So lantern.global, if you go in our current network, in the Mozilla's network, if you go to lantern.global, you'll be able to access what is available right now. And another thing I wanted to say is that every single thing we have done here is fully researched and tested. And this is when the big earthquake hit in Mexico City. It's one of the research from there. And all the 3D printing, the case is 3D printed, so all of the testing and stuff is there. And what next? What we want to do next is really, we want to seed Lantern in targeted middle school curriculums at-risk communities around the US. So in case disaster hits and strikes in any of those areas, at least the schools can immediately donate that to relief efforts. And the three use cases that we have really targeted are citizens, relief workers, citizens to be able to find resources, relief workers to be able to get a visibility on what resources are available, and also people to be able to contribute if they have some resource to offer, but they haven't really know what the official channel is, they could start doing that here. And then when we go from partial to full connectivity, we want to also be able to use machine learning to start to learn patterns, route supplies, create predictive models to be able to support the channels better. And that's pretty much it. And as you have questions, I will show the sync technology. Yes? Yeah. Sorry. Okay, I have to move there.
All right, questions?
Could you talk about the battery lifetime on the devices?
Sure, I can speak to that. My name is Jonah. I lead the design and the technology part of our team. Battery life, right now we have a built-in battery in here. It can run several hours, 3 to 4 hours. With the small one right now, we've tested up to 10 hours. It is rechargeable. It plugs into any USB battery charger. It can plug into a laptop wall charger. And so we're hoping to make this super easy to sort of continuously renew. We also have plans for things like solar chargers and larger battery packs that the Lantern can actually drop into for wider spread deployment.
How does the safety check work? Specifically where I would tell my loved ones that I was okay?
So we have two pieces of this. The first is the offline community, right? When you're offline, we actually synchronize the data across to any nearby devices using both Wi-Fi synchronization and this long-range radio. So this is keeping people in touch within a town or nearby towns. But the great thing about what we built, it uses a technology called CouchDB under the hood, which is a document sync technology. So as soon as anyone in the network has access, your report, if you report that you're safe, that data is instantly synchronized with the cloud. And that's available to family members potentially across the world.
Okay, if my name's John Smith, how does it work for me?
Right. So we've thought a bit about privacy and security, of course, and making sure that this information is protected. We're building role-based systems and encryption into the network so that when you save that name and potentially your birth date and other important information, it's packaged up into an encrypted document, and that can be unwrapped by trusted authorities on the other side. So obviously we hope to take advantage of the great work from the Red Cross and others so that we're not duplicating the existing data in the cloud, but we're trying to keep it safe and make sure that it can spread freely through the network.
I want to ask, are these custom? Did you develop these applications?
Yes, yeah, everything is built from scratch using our app platform. We wrote the whole code base. The tech stack uses some technologies, of course, to make it reactive, to make it respond to data. Things like Vue.js and Leaflet are these open source technologies. Of course, we have to give credit to Raspberry Pi, which is under the hood. What we did is we took Arch Linux, which is a version of this computer system, and we wrote a ton of custom software on top of it and services to run all this data.
And what is the long-term plan? Would it be that you could just go to your website and buy one of these, and it would be shipped to me for $50, and I'd be ready to roll?
That's absolutely one of our 3 strategies, yes. So we do hope that this will be appealing for adoption, whether it's subsidized or purchased. We're also looking at ways to provide grants and actually get this into school systems for free. And of course, we have the ability to actually plug into this network for as low as $10 to actually go out and buy a Raspberry Pi W0. And that's a $10 device. And though it doesn't have all of the features, you can join the network and help support it with just a purchase off the shelf. So we're working hard on a lot of strategies. We're also hoping to potentially airdrop things like this down the line because the form factor is lightweight enough and disposable enough to allow for that.
Thanks. One more question.
What was the third strategy?
So the third strategy would be basically bringing down the price so that you can take an existing device called the Raspberry Pi and plug it in and use our custom software, which is available on an SD card. So you can download a local cache of everything you need to run.
And to also work with like Red Cross workers, officials, if you're able to get partnerships that they can just carry their device because they are going from all over the country when a disaster strikes. So for them to be able to take the device, if you're able to get into that channel, even though we don't want to rely only on official channels because it's something that we want the community to be able to handle ground up.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Our next demo will be Peter Bloom, who will be presenting on behalf of Rhizomatica from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much to Mozilla and the National Science Foundation. Also, congratulations to all the other finalists. I'm going to talk to you about this is right here in front of me? Oh, this. So look at this thing. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about Hermes. Sorry. I'm going to talk to you about Hermes and a little bit about Rhizomatica. So what we do is we work with communities to develop technology that is useful for them in their everyday lives, and also in the case of disasters. And this is a picture of some of the work that we do. We also work on regulatory aspects of connectivity. So how do we move beyond just being able to do Wi-Fi into other bands like TV white spaces, GSM, LTE, from a community standpoint. And then we also work, again, with communities around the world on how to make their networks sustainable. In this case, this is just a picture of some of the work that we do. Some of my colleagues setting up sites around the world. This is a workshop that we did in a community around folks setting up their own GSM network. What we wanted to do with Hermes is deal with the backhaul issue. So there have been some really excellent presentations about these local offline networks that are really awesome, and congratulations. What we're trying to figure out is how to build a framework by which those offline networks can actually be connected in realistic ways. So we talk to folks around the world, and their big challenge a lot of times when there's a disaster or simply just being way out in the middle of nowhere is connecting back to something. So what we tried to do is we built an autonomous infrastructure, so actual hardware that we put together that includes GSM, voice over IP, it includes a Wi-Fi access point, and it also includes a shortwave radio. We decided to work on shortwave radio because it's more or less the hardest challenge because it is a very low data rate, but we wanted to see what could we effectively do over shortwave radio, mainly because it doesn't require any intermediate infrastructure. So we can send a text message now through Hermes 500, 600, 700 miles out of the disaster area. And we also wanted to design something that would be useful in an emergency, but also be useful as permanent infrastructure. So we see very isolated rural communities around the world, truly offline, off-grid communities that use shortwave radio as their means of communication. And our design challenge here was to say, how do we add to that infrastructure that already exists of shortwave and create a GSM network they can connect to, or hopefully in the future an LTE network they can connect to, a Wi-Fi access point, and a place where these local apps like chat and all these maps and all these other things that have already been talked about can run, but also has a way to be updated and contacted by the outside world when necessary and for no extra money. So the great thing about shortwave radio is it bounces off the ionosphere, doesn't bounce off a satellite. We don't need a point-to-point link. We just simply bounce it off the atmosphere, and that can go very, very, very far. What we want to do next with Hermes, so we built the framework, we have the infrastructure, we set it up, we did it, we sent our text messages and our voice messages, we updated our maps over HF, all that is working. What we found is that the commercial off-the-shelf radios that we're using for the HF part, for the shortwave part, leave something to be desired when we start talking about the internet, when we start talking about duplex communication. So basically, if you think of a shortwave radio, it's you press a button and you speak. When you connect a shortwave radio to a computer, it basically does the same thing. The radios have to key and exchange information and do all of this. What we want to do is start using software-defined radio to remove some of the complexity from the hardware standpoint. So the stuff all the way on the left, that's the HF radio. Most of that is going to disappear and turn into a very small device based on software-defined radio. And the embedded PC is going to turn into a Raspberry Pi. Since we had a limited amount of time to actually develop the prototype, we decided not to focus on that piece yet. We have two SDR things that we're working on right now. One is based on SDR 1000. We're basically making a copy of it. And then we're also working with Raspberry Pi, which now has something called Raspberry Pi TX, where you can turn a Raspberry Pi into a transmitter. And one of our collaborators recently sent some data packets using 11 milliwatts, 2 kilometers. 11 milliwatts, that's like nothing. So it's very promising from the hardware standpoint. So like I said, with SDR, we can also use larger channels. So your average commercial off-the-shelf radio is useful for doing voice on really small channels. SDR allows us to use larger channels and transfer more data, and also allows us to tap into the software world. Again, reductions in size, weight, and power requirements will also be available as we switch over to this SDR-based system. Yeah, so I've said that already. Thank you very much.
Great. Any questions?
Hi, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. So you're talking about a GSM base station that's backhauled by shortwave radio?
Correct.
Okay. How expensive are the GSM base stations?
So right now, the one that we use that's in the video that was also on the screen here costs around $2,500. But we get really good range out of it. So one of the things we wanted to focus on was saying we just want to put up one piece of infrastructure that can cover everybody. So we can go 8, 9, 10 miles with the one base station and connect hundreds to up to 1,000 people to it.
Okay, but now you're dealing with licensed spectrum, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So like I said, that's part of the work that we do. We have access to spectrum in a number of different countries where we work. So that's a central piece of our work is saying we want to unlock the potential of these other technologies, and part of that is about unlocking access to spectrum, both as a human rights issue and as just a practical issue of we want to be able to run these networks. We have a full license in Mexico. We have experimental licenses in Brazil, in Colombia, and some other places. So it's something that we...
Do you generally find governments are interested in what you're doing and want to support you?
So far, yes. It can be slow sometimes. Like I said, we have the full license and did all the work already in Mexico, but it took some years.
Yeah.
But now that that experience exists, we take that and share it around and are convincing other governments that it's a good idea. And we work at the ITU, we work at CTEL. It's a whole fun world of regulatory stuff.
Okay, thanks.
Right.
So, can you talk about the experience of, say, texting and doing voice messages when you're just using this shortwave backhaul connected to the GSM in terms of like how many users and how many messages and if the experience changes?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a mathematical answer to that has to do, but basically, you're on your phone, you're connected to this GSM network, you're calling people locally, and then if you dial a number that's a plus whatever number, some +1 for a US number, you can send a text message to that person. So you just type the text message and you send it, and then it goes out over the shortwave radio. We can send, there's an exact number, it's like 36,000 SMSs a day or something like that. The purpose for this is very much about, in an emergency, you want to be able to tell people that you're okay. And this allows people to tell anyone, anywhere, that has a phone number that they're okay. So right now, you basically say the number you want to send the message to, you say, this is me, I'm okay. And then that person can respond to you over text. They can respond to you with voice messages. And what we're working on now is actually full duplex voice, be able to do a phone call, be able to pass other kinds of data back and forth, TCP/IP services and all that.
Just to follow up on that, say I'm not okay. So how might this help services come into communities where people need services?
So yeah, someone finds you, says, please send help. It's again the same. We can send the emergency messages anywhere we need to send them. It also allows, one of the questions that came up earlier, is it allows for someone from a central location to also pass information to the site. So for example, if all the information is being aggregated and being sent to some sort of crisis center or whatever, that same crisis center can send information back and say, okay, I'm going to update this map about where all the stuff is. What are the other communities that are affected where you can get water, where you can get shelter? And that can be done locally, but it can also be done over this sort of almost...
Yeah. So is there some kind of broadcast function or something in that where you could target?
Yeah, so we can broadcast SMS to people. We can broadcast voice messages to people. People can also check the map, which is a local app running there and look at where things are on the map.
That's what I was going to ask. So there's actually an app on the phone too that you download ahead of time.
Yeah, it can be. You can use it as an app, or you can also use it from a browser. Okay. So you can access the URL and see what's going on.
All right, thank you. Sorry. I'm clearly not here to make friends today, sorry. All right, well, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. So by my calculations, that is 2:32, if you could be back in here. Actually, sorry, 2:33. My math is wrong. It just changed. See you soon.
You sometimes have more questions.
The flat, you know, the stuff, yes. Judges in? You're right. All right, if you could find your seat. All right, we have a few more people joining us. All right, welcome back from your break. Everyone is doing so well post lunch. I guess this whole thing has sort of been post lunch, so nicely done, everyone. All right, so the next demo will be Boken Lin, who will be presenting Sonnet by Sonnet Labs from Boston, Massachusetts.
Hello. In recent years, we've become more and more dependent on telecommunication technology, which keeps us connected with the rest of the world. But what do we do when these technologies fail because the infrastructure that they depend on no longer work? For example, last year, Hurricane Maria wiped out 95% of Puerto Rico's telecom network, which leaves millions of people unconnected. And a lot of these people are concerned about their loved ones, but there's nothing they can do. And that is where the Sonnet comes in. And Sonnet is a device like this. It is a wireless device that lets you communicate using your smartphone completely off the grid. It is portable, rugged, very affordable, and we've recently just started pilot production. So here is how it works. To use the Sonnet, simply connect your smartphone to the Wi-Fi hotspot on the Sonnet, which will give you access to the Sonnet app from the web browser. The app is hosted locally on the Sonnet device, and it lets you send message through Sonnet's long-range mesh network. For example, I can send a text message. I can also use my phone to take a picture of the Sonnet and send the image as a message. It typically takes a few seconds to send because they're much larger than just text. There. And you can also send a GPS location. And if you tap on the GPS location, it opens up our offline map, which will allow you to visualize exactly where that location is. So this demo might not look that impressive here, but it works even when the two Sonnet devices are miles and miles apart. The Sonnet mesh network also supports IPv6. So you can use existing software and communication protocols with the Sonnet without any modification. So for example, what I'm doing right now is using SFTP to send a file from my PC to my Mac through the Sonnet mesh network. And we think adopting the IPv6 means that Sonnet can easily integrate with existing networking technologies that already exist. And it will also allow users to use tools that they're already familiar with to help them recover from a disaster. Supporting IPv6 also means that if one Sonnet device has access to the internet, it can share that internet connection with the rest of the mesh network. And so the demo here works as such. So initially, neither of the two Sonnet devices are connected to the internet. So when I try to load a web page on the phone on the right, it fails. But if I connect the Sonnet on the left to a Wi-Fi network, now I can share that internet connection with the Sonnet device on the right. And now if I just do a refresh on the phone, the page should load as if the phone is directly connected to the internet. So internet sharing just means that Sonnet Mesh Network isn't just the isolated local network. It can also provide a gateway to allow people to reach out to the rest of the world, which we think is very important, especially during a disaster scenario. We've also done a lot of work on the hardware side to make the Sonnet as user-friendly as we can. It weighs just about 1/3 of a pound, so you can conveniently carry it wherever you go. The internal battery lasts up to 36 hours, so you don't have to charge it that often. It is also water resistant, which we think is very important, especially a lot of disaster-prone areas right here in the US experience a lot of hurricane. And most importantly, we've worked very, very hard to lower the production cost to make the Sonnet accessible to everyone. Currently, we're pricing the Sonnet at just $45 or $89 per pair, which is much more affordable than other comparable devices on the market. And we've been working on the Sonnet for over a year now, and right now we're doing some field tests with our beta testers. And as you can see here, some of our beta testers include people from search and rescue, disaster relief, and fire rescue organizations. And we also have beta testers outside of North America as well, including a team from the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council from the Philippines. So we're very thrilled about creating technologies that have the potential to actually save lives. And the WINS funding will help us accelerate the rollout of the Sonnet as a deployable solution and help us to bring a resilient communication for both disaster victims as well as people who are deployed to relieve the disasters. Thank you very much.
Questions? Everyone's excited.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's a long-range mesh network. How long is long range?
So the typical range we're getting right now is around 3 to 4 miles, point to point, and then there's also multi-hop on top of that.
Yeah, okay. And then how would you anticipate distributing these? Do you have any kind of social aspect to this?
What do you mean social aspect?
I mean, who would have them?
So right now we're marketing the product to a lot of people who, do outdoor sports, like people who hike. But we're seeing a lot of interest from search and rescue teams.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of from field scientists who explore in the Arctic, for example. So we're seeing all kinds of interest from all over the world, really.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
So if you think of the one Sonnet that's connected to the internet as the root, how many hops away have you tested?
So right now, the theoretical maximum we can hop is 16 hops, but we've tested up to 7 hops, realistically.
Sonnet immediately makes me think of GoTenna. How would you characterize your device in comparison to something like GoTenna?
We certainly belong in the same category in that we allow instantaneous communication between two users. But I think by adopting IPv6, we try to be the more open platform, and not only can you use your smartphone with the Sonnet, you can also use essentially any Wi-Fi connected device.
And a similar question to the last team, are these custom developed apps that are these off the shelf, open source apps that you've put on there?
Yeah, we are going to be open sourcing the app that we just showed.
But it's something you developed?
Yes, it's something that we developed. But it's based on a lot of open source platforms like Polymer and Vue.js, things like that.
Okay, thanks.
So how scalable is this? So if I've got one Sonnet, how many phones can connect to it, and about how many can you support with that one internet connection with multiple hops?
Right. So so each Sonnet can support. We've tested up to 10 phones, and there really is an issue. And the biggest limitation right now is the bandwidth on the long-range mesh, because right now we are using the LoRa modulation method. But with the current hardware, we can actually use FSK, which is 10 times faster, but we just sacrifice a bit on the range. So if we are able to move forward with this project, what we're going to be doing next is to develop FSK modulation for the Sonnet.
One more question.
Can I ask what your long-term sustainability plans are for Sonnet? Is it going to be a business, a social enterprise, a nonprofit?
Right now it is a startup, so it's a for-profit organization. But I think startup in recent years tend to care a lot more about the world than big companies in the past. So.
All right, thank you so much. All right, next we will have Disaster Radio by Pseudomesh, which will be presented by Mark Jewell from Oakland, California.
All right. Great. Sorry about the delay here, just getting things set up. Okay, let's do this. Hello, I'm Mark Jewell from Disaster Radio Project. Disaster Radio is a long-range, low-bandwidth disaster recovery network that's powered by the sun. And let me just move into the software to begin with, and then I'll talk about the hardware. So we have this chat app that is the first app we wrote. I'll just do a quick demo of it right now. So we have some other team members in the room who are going to help me demonstrate, hopefully. I'm just going to reload it here. So I'm connected now to the Wi-Fi, at least I was. The dangers of live demos. Never mind. Okay, so we have a chat app that you can use and you can talk to people on the network, and that was the first app we wrote for the network. The network relays from node to node, so we get multi-mile range between each node, and then we can relay as far as we like. We have a new app, which is a mapping app, which I will just use our little fallback here, which we developed specifically to run these tiny microcontrollers we're using. So we designed the system to be extremely low power, and as such we're using a microcontroller-based system, but we still managed to fit an entire map of the Bay Area with street-level information and buildings. And we have we've written this app where you can map out resources, and you can describe the resources you're mapping out. And you can save, and other people on the network can see the things you're mapping out and adding to the map. And we have a little active network. It's only, oh, let me just get that away. And okay. And we have a little active network here, which is only 4 nodes right now. We're using the tests. We have 4 types of nodes. So the first is our flagship node that you may have seen before. It's this thing right here. It's jingling around because I took the top off so you can have a look inside. It's a solar-powered node, so it has built-in solar panels, and on top of having a built-in solar panel, it also has a battery, it has a Wi-Fi access point, and it has the long-distance radio. And then we have a different kind of node here, which is a portable Wi-Fi node. It's the same hardware, but without the solar, without the battery. And then it has USB, so you can hook it up to a computer, you can power it off a USB battery. Very small. And we're passing these around right now, so you'll get to hold them in your hand. Then we have a new type of node, which is a gateway node. So the gateway node is kind of like a Raspberry Pi, a single board computer hooked up to one of these radios, and it allows information to flow between the disaster radio low bandwidth network and the greater internet. And the way we've implemented this is we've partnered with the Scuttlebutt developers to create this integration where whenever people post things to the chat, for example, it flows into the Scuttlebutt network. And I should be able to demonstrate that. I'm going to give it a shot at least. And sorry about that. Whatever. Limited time. And it starts over again. And I want to announce our new partner, which is the Greycat Collective. Greycat Collective has created this amazing little handheld node. It's a completely integrated handheld unit that can be used for texting and chatting. They have very long battery life. So one of the issues with all the other stuff we have is that it's using Wi-Fi, so you need a Wi-Fi device. There's a hard to keep charged. So this device can run probably for weeks. We haven't really tested it because it's so new. We just got our hands on it like 2 weeks ago. We've been working tightly with Greycat Collective to integrate with the disaster radio, so they are now disaster radio compatible. And we're partnering with LibreRouter. LibreRouter is very similar to Ubiquiti. It's outdoor long-range Wi-Fi gear, but it's the first fully open-source open hardware gear. And we have a partnership where the ship nodes will include disaster radio integration. So we're working on that right now. They're saying they will ship the first fully production nodes in 2 months. We're partnered, of course, with the local Bay Area Mesh Network, People's Open Network. Some of our team members overlap between the two projects, not just because we want to integrate with our existing mesh network, but also because we are actually setting up these depots around the Bay Area, and we're collaborating with them on that. The depots are places where we'll be able to pick up stuff like LibreRouter hardware and other kinds of mesh hardware, solar panels. So we understand that when people are in a disaster, the first thing you need is just getting basic communication up, but after a few days, a few weeks, you really need real internet. And so we're thinking of disaster radio as a way to bootstrap yourself to real internet. The mapping app I showed before, one of the things you can map out is these depots where you can go and get Wi-Fi gear. We've created these cables right here that we'll be handing out at the depots. And the cables are very simple. They have a bunch of different adapters on them, but they allow you to power any mesh node off any kind of thing that you can find around your neighborhood that has 12 volts, so a car or car battery. And in order to deploy these rapidly after disaster, we've created these very early prototypes of automated drone mounting systems, which of course didn't work in the middle of our demo. The automated drone mounting systems, well, you can come check out later. We have 2 prototypes. They're like basically just exploring the design space. So very early, but the idea is that 1 or 2 people in a van full of nodes and a bunch of drone batteries and drones should be able to mount enough nodes to cover an area the size of San Francisco in 1 or 2 days. That's it. Okay, here's our partners.
Okay, great. Excellent. And we've got some time for questions.
Hello.
Brian?
Standard question about.
Sorry.
Ryan. The distance between the nodes and the spectrum that you're using?
Okay, so we're using some other people are using the same gear here. Is LoRa modules, so in the US it's 915 megahertz or around that. In the other countries, 400 and something, 800 and something. But of course also Wi-Fi. All the devices are Wi-Fi capable except for the little handsets with the keyboards.
So standard question about number of users that you can cover per node, and what would be the price of a MVP deployment, let's say a square mile region?
Okay, so a square mile is a single node. Of course, in order to use that node, you have to actually be within the Wi-Fi range of it with a device, or have one of the handheld ones. It's about the solar powered nodes are about $40 production costs, and the small nodes are, what do we get them for? I think it was around $15. Yeah.
Quick question about the Grey Cat devices. What frequencies do they use? The bigger question is, if you won the award, what would you use it for? And what are your plans for getting to scale with some of these devices?
Okay, the Grey Cat devices are using the same chip that we're using, so the same frequencies I mentioned before, which is one of the reasons we partnered with them to begin with. We just realized it would be easy to integrate, and it would really add value to our network. What we use to spend, how to spend the money is, a quarter of it would go to Grey Cat to further develop those devices and get them really production ready. And then we have several team members that I tried to show on the last slide here, who have already committed that they would spend either half-time or full-time on the project. So we'd get the project to the point where we have at least 200 nodes deployed in multiple communities around the world, and to the point where we can start selling them to be sustainable. So we're planning a crowdfunding campaign, and we're thinking about a model where we're selling, doing a thing where you buy 2, get 1, and then the other node goes to a community that's disconnected from the internet or a disaster area.
One more question.
What is the particular value when in a community that is not suffering from a disaster?
Yeah, when you're not suffering from a disaster, I think the biggest value add from this is that you'd be able to have a local network that doesn't necessarily propagate to the rest of the world. So you could have local, you could put things on the map that are relevant to you locally, and you can kind of isolate it from the rest of the world. And I kind of assume, being in Oakland, that people use it to announce underground parties, but hopefully also other kinds of community events.
Great, thank you so much. All right, our last but certainly not least off-the-grid network demo will be Dr. Spencer Sevilla, who will be presenting on behalf of the University of Washington in Seattle with the standalone emergency LTE network in a box.
Is there... Oh, I was just going to put this down. I meant more, is there a clicker? Yeah? Oh, right here, so I see. Great, okay, so let's go ahead and there we go. So we went ahead and essentially used the open air interface package and created LTE network in a box. We've got, this part here is our base station, pretty hand movable, and then we have our network core, kind of controls the head of the network. It all comes kind of together, and the idea is that we packaged it up with also a lot of web services, kind of the standard stuff you've been seeing, a chat application, maps where users can look at the map, see what's going on, add pins of their own, so on and so forth. But the interesting thing is that this project essentially addresses both of the problems at the same time, because we've got these offline things, but if there's internet access, you can also be bridging this. And so there's value in a community networking context as well. So in the emergency response, we're imagining that workers come right in and set this up. In just a generic community networking response, we can build this and either provide internet or offline services in a community, which is exactly what we did. Since the round 2 submission, we have a partner community that works in Indonesia. Excuse me. And we went out there, we built a network, we made kind of a very high school science class type video of all this process, and I'd like to share it with you. No, that didn't. I'll do it. use their...
And we're here to build what is, to the best of our knowledge, the world's first community LTE network.
Bokondini is a small hillside village in the Papuan Highlands with a population of about 5.
Hi.
One second, folks. We're going to cue the video from upstairs real quick.
Part of these technical difficulties are probably my fault. I got these to Mayhan a bit late. I was actually in Indonesia until about 48 hours ago. Came straight back for this, and he was very accommodating because being out here, we were all behind a 1 megabit VSAT, which is less than ideal for uploading large videos. Well, in the meantime, I can start talking about some of the stuff that we were able to kind of range test out there, because the goal was, we had these partners out in Indonesia with a Spectrum license, which is fantastic. We came out, this was the site of an old previous 2G network, and we said, we're going to try doing LTE in this way. This way we could set up an actual network with large-scale antennas, figure out, start doing range testing, user testing, all the kind of nuts and bolts, and we got pretty good results. We were able to essentially get the network up, get it operational.
In the Papuan Highlands.
Cool, are we good?
Yeah, sounds like it.
With a population of about 5,000 people that live in these main areas. Our plan is to place our base station on top of the main school near existing power and satellite backhaul and mount 2 antennas, with each antenna covering a 120 degrees sector.
We made it to Bokondini, and now I'm standing in Obangan Elementary School. Behind me is a tower from an old network that's no longer in service. We're going to borrow that tower and put our equipment on it. Right below the tower is a small room full of electrical equipment for the community. Let's go check it out. We're in the power room that I've been using as our command center for the last several days. Now, I'd like to show you some of our equipment. This is our software network core that controls the entire network. It's just a small computer that runs Linux. These two are our LTE base stations. And these two big things are our antennas. They're almost as tall as I am. We're going to mount all of this equipment on the tower that's directly above us. You got it? Yes. You can't see, but I've got a rope that we're also... No, just for leverage.
And back to our town map. How'd we do with coverage? Pretty good. Aside from 5 houses blocked by a small hill, our network provides good, usable internet anywhere in the community. The signal itself covers over a mile and could probably go farther, but is bounded mainly by the uphill to the southwest and the downhill slope to the river.
Okay, let's wrap this all up. We brought the equipment.
We installed everything on the tower.
We connected a phone.
We tested range and coverage.
And in the coming weeks, our community partners are going to be distributing SIM cards and publicly launching the network. We've got to head back to the States, so that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time. That kind of wraps up. I didn't know where we fell on time. So I'll come over here and turn it over to...
Awesome.
Matt,
we're in the Indonesian village of
Sorry, that was my fault.
No, you can't turn it off.
Could you talk a little bit about emergency mode and compatibility with different phones?
Yeah, so our initial goal, and I think we covered this on the round too, the initial goal was to try leveraging some of the emergency services only mode to get around SIM card off. And that turned into kind of a rat's nest based on whether the individual SIM is supporting VoLTE or not, and we weren't able to make much discovery headway on that. So we kind of pivoted into the idea of, we started at the same time talking to some emergency services providers, and it sounds like our vision is a disaster hits, emergency workers, whether it's the Red Cross or the National Guard or whomever, it's going to come right in. They typically have headquarters where they've got reliable power, but also limited satellite internet, satellite or something else. So the vision is that we can leverage that just to do a roaming authentication. So the goal was completely offline for the Emergency Connect. Now it's more leveraging an existing roaming interconnect that the public safety broadband network has. So to do that, it's about 500 bytes once every several days for the initial attach of a handset. And then the goal being, because we've split the control plane from the data plane, that doesn't necessarily mean the internet connection is bridged to all the users because they don't want to get their internet blown up. But we can do this just to get users attached onto the network.
Kudos on the production values of your video. So you're a university project, right? How do you see this growing from a university project into something that could actually be used in disaster relief?
The answer is, so I'm affiliated with the University of Washington, but I'm a postdoc, which is, purgatory. So this has been a one-year contract that will probably extend. It's up in a couple months. And then beyond that, I am personally not looking for tenure-track positions. So the goal is maybe spinning this out into whether a nonprofit or a startup or me just making my living consulting and doing this on the side. The goal is not to commercialize the software. Everything needs to be open source, fully accessible to communities. That's how we're building this stuff out. But that is, as long as I'm not going too hungry, I think it should be okay.
The university doesn't own it, even if you're a postdoc?
That's correct. The university does not own any of this. It's all open source.
Backhaul?
So with backhaul, the question is you can do it with or without. So without, we're hosting a bunch of offline services on there.
Yeah.
Which, with backhaul, we've provided, so the side thrust of this project in building out these community LTE networks is, the goal is to have them as easy to set up as a Wi-Fi network. So you can go in, we have web-based configuration tools, and with that, we're trying to create a system of, I want to share this backhaul, yes or no. I want to throttle it to a certain amount. I want to, we're trying to give network managers those options so that it doesn't just get blown up or you're worried about everyone YouTubing on what needs to be really sensitive bandwidth. So those are kind of the options. You can plug anything in. In Bocandini, we had a 1 megabit satellite that this was behind, and actually worked surprisingly well. The main uses we saw, YouTube is surprisingly good on variant links. I was not expecting this to work. WhatsApp worked fantastic. We had a bit of latency in voice calls, but WhatsApp was great. SMSs, well, WhatsApp chats came through immediately. A bunch of other things worked better than I thought.
Okay, and I had another question, but yeah.
We have like 20 seconds.
What kind of power requirements are there?
The system right now is slightly over 40 watts. And the vision being that this would be, we wanted to get away from a system where we're draining everyone's batteries. So the idea being, if you have, in this case, the school is right next to the power grid, which is a bunch of batteries in a solar panel. So that's more than ample to support the community and the system. And this way, phones, under LTE, phones are able to go into idle, they're able to last a lot longer, and we don't have battery issues kind of throughout the community or a network that could be going down.
Great, thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna hand it off to Mehan real quick, and we'll wrap up.
Thank you, Jen. Can we please have a round of applause for our moderator and MC, Jen Beard? And can we please also have one last round of applause for all the incredible teams who presented today? Thank you. So you're probably all wondering what happens next. So you've seen our judges over here diligently taking notes, asking difficult questions, jotting things down. So our judges are going to be deliberating over the next few days and figuring out who the grand prize winners are going to be. And there's going to be 4 grand prize winners in each of the 2 categories. So each of the grand prize winners will receive between $50,000 and $400,000 in award money, which we hope that they will use to continue building and implementing their solutions. So we're hoping to make that announcement sometime around mid-September. So stay tuned to the Mozilla blog. We'll be having an announcement on there once we figure out who the grand prize winners will be. So in closing, I need to thank a bunch of folks. So I'm going to ask you to hold your applause until the very end, and then we can applaud for all of the folks who were instrumental in making this event happen and making this program happen over the years. So first, I want to thank Jack and Thiaga from NSF, who I'm very grateful that they were able to be here today. You know, they really helped come up with the idea for this program, steward the program from its very inception up until today, and have been very supportive every step of the way in helping to put together and run this program. I want to thank all of the teams who participated in the challenges, so not just the 14 teams who we saw today providing demos, but all of the teams throughout stages 1 and 2 who had all sorts of really exciting, innovative ideas and who put a lot of time and energy and effort into their submissions to the challenges. I want to thank our panel of expert judges who took tons of time out of their busy schedules to judge hundreds of submissions that we received, and many of whom also traveled great distances across the US and Canada to be with us here today. I want to thank our colleagues on the Mozilla Policy and Open Innovation teams, including Yochai Benavi, who's here today, as well as Lindsay Saunders, who I think is watching on the live stream, for their expert advice and guidance throughout the course of the challenges. I want to thank the Mozilla Foundation leadership, including Angela, who spoke to us today, and Mark Sermon as well, for their guidance and support. Our incredible press person, Kevin, who I just saw hiding in the back of the room there, for all the amazing work that he's done to help us publicize the challenges over the years. We're really grateful for all of Kevin's hard work there. I want to thank my teammates, Janice, Craig, and Leah, for their help kind of putting together and running this event today. A lot of you may have spoken with them at the check-in desk or seen them handing out swag earlier. So they've put a lot of hard work into helping make this happen. And last but not least, I need to thank my colleagues Lindsay and Jen, who are sitting right up front here, for all of their tireless work supporting, advising, and helping to build this program every step of the way over the last 2 years. This program absolutely would not have been possible without them. So if we please have a big round of applause for everyone who helped out today. So that's it for today. If you're going back to the Wild Palms Hotel at 3:30, there'll be a bus at the main entrance. So that's a little under a half hour from now. And otherwise, we have this room for a little bit, so feel free to hang out for about half an hour and chat and talk to folks before you get on the shuttles. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
And just one other thing, if you have glasses, cups, those kinds of things, we have an event in here tomorrow, which is very exciting. We look forward to seeing a lot of you join us for the Gigabit Community Celebration. But if you could just, you know, there's good recycling bins and things around, so be kind. Thank you. Thanks.